Godzilla, the king of the monsters. Created by the Japanese film studio company Toho in 1954, he is the quintessential kaiju. Since his first appearance in 1954, he has gone on to appear in over 30 movies, along with various other media, including television shows, video games, and comic books. And with all of that content, the actual lore for the giant monster can get, well, kind of confusing. Okay, more like really confusing. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a complete mess. When there's this much content around one character, it can cause investing in the character to become a daunting task. Which movies are part of the same continuity? Why is Godzilla sometimes a benevolent creature and at other times a complete asshole? What do you mean this thing is a giant crab? As a Godzilla fan and content creator, I wanted to solve this problem. The goal was simple. Create a video that anyone can watch where, after a brief period of investment, they could sit down with a die-hard Godzilla fan and be able to have a discussion about this character and the stories and characters which surround him. As we go over the films, you will see title cards which show the name of the film, the continuity it's a part of, and the date the film takes place in the timeline. The reason the date is based on the timeline's date rather than the date of the movie's release is to keep the video focused on the lore and the story rather than the real-world history of the films. This means you may see films out of order in relationship to their release dates, since they will be presented in chronological order of the timeline they are a part of. With all of that out of the way, let's dive in to the ultimate Godzilla lore breakdown. The Showa era refers to a period in Japan's history under Emperor Hirohito, and is thus the name given to the set of Godzilla and kaiju films produced during this time period. Beginning in 1954, Godzilla was the villain, destroying cities and fighting other monsters such as Anguirus and Mothra. However, by the time Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, came out, Godzilla began shifting towards a more heroic role, teaming up with other monsters to battle greater threats. The Showa Godzilla films can be split into three main cycles. The first cycle consists of the first two Godzilla films released in 1954 and 1955, which were followed by a 7-year break, during which Toho made other kaiju movies including Rodan and Mothra. The second cycle began in 1962 with King Kong vs. Godzilla, and from then on a new Godzilla film was released near annually through the 1960s. Over this time, Godzilla's character evolved from a destructive force to a more sympathetic, almost superhero-like figure. In 1968, Toho released the movie Destroy All Monsters, which was intended to be the conclusion of the Godzilla series. In terms of a timeline, this is the conclusion of the Showa Timeline story, as the story takes place in the year 1999 of the Showa continuity. However, Toho continued to produce Godzilla films for its annual Champion Film Festival. These films, in terms of continuity, take place after the movie Son of Godzilla and before Destroy All Monsters. This is the third cycle of Showa movies. After Terror of Mechagodzilla failed at the box office, the Godzilla series would be put on hiatus for nearly a decade, a decision which brought an end to the Showa era and timeline. The only movie not included in this timeline's lore breakdown is the movie All Monsters Attack, released in 1969. This is because the canonicity of this movie is disputed, as the universe it takes place in is ambiguous. And even then, the movie's plot takes place in the imagination of a young boy, so it's really just an argument as to whether this boy exists in his own continuity or the Showa continuity. But in either case, the story ultimately is not canon to the Showa timeline, and therefore not part of the timeline or true lore of Godzilla. Another thing to point out is that even though Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla vs. Gigan, and Godzilla vs. Megalon were not all released in 1971, They all must take place in 1971 in the timeline, since monster appearances and character reactions make it clear these films occur in succession, and Godzilla vs. Megalon explicitly occurs in early 1971, meaning if we take Godzilla vs. Hedorah's release date as its date on the timeline, it causes all three previously mentioned movies to be set in early 1971. In 1954, a pair of Japanese freighters and a local fishing boat are destroyed near Odo Island, leaving only a few survivors. Meanwhile, local fish catches have hit zero, and an elder fisherman blames it on an ancient sea creature named Godzilla. Reporters arrive on the island, and a villager tells one of them that something in the sea is messing up the fishing. That night, a storm hits Odo Island, taking out the reporter's helicopter, and during the chaos, Godzilla appears, wrecking 17 homes, killing 9 people, and wiping out 20 of the villagers' animals. The people of Odo Island head to Tokyo to demand relief following the destruction. As a result of the evidence they provide, the government sends paleontologist Kyohei Yamane to investigate, and there he finds giant radioactive footprints. Suddenly, the village alarm rings, and Yamane and the villagers retreat when they finally witness Godzilla. The original Godzilla is a prehistoric sea creature that lived in the Pacific Ocean until 1954, when hydrogen bombs were dropped on its home, causing the creature to become irradiated and scarred, while its entire family and home was destroyed. It is because of the destruction of its family and home that this Godzilla chooses to attack humanity. Its design features a heavy lower body, small arms, and a large round head. Its face has bold brows, and its eyes are round with tiny pupils. It has a burnt and scarred appearance due to its encounter with the hydrogen bomb. Godzilla is amphibious, spending half its time in the ocean and the other half on land, and he is just as skilled at fighting underwater as he is on the ground. Its incandescent light ability is a mist-like breath which can set entire city blocks ablaze and annihilate military weaponry, and it has total resistance to conventional weaponry. Back in Tokyo, Yamane presents his findings. He believes the creature was disturbed by an underwater hydrogen bomb test, and there's a debate on whether to warn the public about the monster as ships begin mysteriously vanishing at sea. 10 warships are sent out to try and kill Godzilla, with depth charges, but the mission fails, and when Godzilla survives the attack, the officials turn to Dr. Yamane for ideas, but he insists the creature is unkillable, having survived nuclear tests, and should be studied instead. Meanwhile, Yamane's daughter, Emiko, decides to break off her arranged engagement to scientist Daisuke Shirazawa because she loves Hidetoh Ogata, a salvage ship captain. Emiko then encounters a reporter asking to interview Shirazawa, and Emiko takes him to Shirazawa's home. After Shirazawa refuses to talk about his work, he shows Emiko a secret project he's been working on, which shocks her. Soon after, Godzilla emerges from Tokyo Bay, attacks Shinagawa, and destroys a passing train before returning to the ocean. Japan's Self-Defense Force then builds a 30-meter-high electrified fence along the coast to try and kill Godzilla, but Godzilla manages to break through the fence with its atomic breath and heads into Tokyo, destroying everything in its path. More attempts to kill Godzilla with tanks and fighter jets fail, and it returns to the ocean following the night of destruction. The next day, hospitals and shelters are packed with injured and dead people, and many survivors are suffering from radiation sickness. Devastated by the destruction, Emiko tells Ogata about Shirazawa's research, a weapon called the Oxygen Destroyer, which can disintegrate oxygen atoms and cause living things to suffocate and dissolve. Emiko and Ogata go to Shirazawa to try and convince him to use it, but he refuses at first, fearing that if the device is used, the world's superpowers will force him to make more for use as a weapon of war. After watching news reports about the ongoing devastation, Shirazawa finally agrees to help. Ogata and Shirazawa head out on a Navy ship to plant the Oxygen Destroyer in Tokyo Bay. After they find Godzilla, Shirazawa sets off the device and cuts off his air support, taking the secret of the weapon to his grave and bringing an end to both Godzilla and Shirazawa. 1 year later, Shoichi Tsukioka, A pilot for a Japanese fishing company guides a fishing trawler when another pilot, Koji Kobayashi, runs into engine problems and has to make an emergency landing on Iwato Island. Tsukioka is sent to rescue him, but along the way they stumble upon two kaijus fighting, Godzilla and a new four-legged creature. The pilots manage to escape as the monsters crash into the sea. The two pilots head to Osaka to recruit the help of Dr. Yamane and local authorities to look into the monster encounter, and these authorities proceed to give the new monster seen alongside Godzilla the name Anguirus. Anguirus is an ankylosaurus originating from around 150 to 70 million years ago, around the same time as Godzilla. Like Godzilla, Anguirus survived into modern times by lying dormant at the bottom of the ocean, and was likewise awakened and mutated by nuclear tests in the 1950s. The first generation Anguirus originates specifically from Siberia. Anguirus is described as a voracious carnivorous dinosaur, even though ankylosauruses were herbivores. It is highly aggressive, particularly when dealing with other hostile creatures. Anguirus is durable enough to shake off direct blasts from Godzilla's incandescent light, and is covered in an armored shell with rows of sharp spikes and attacks with its teeth and claws. During his fight with Godzilla, he also lets out a powerful ultrasonic roar that is capable of destroying large buildings. Dr. Yamane shows the authorities footage of the first Godzilla attack, explaining that Godzilla was killed by the oxygen destroyer, but its inventor died, and there is now no known way to defeat Godzilla. He suggests a blackout and using flares to lure Godzilla away from citizenry, since the first one was sensitive to light. The second generation Godzilla is not the same as the original one, who did in fact die at the end of the original movie. This version of Godzilla is actually the most well known, the iconic main character of most of the Showa continuity. Like the previous Godzilla, this one was awakened by an American hydrogen bomb test in the South Pacific, absorbing massive amounts of radiation while simultaneously forcing him out of his natural underwater home. Unlike the first, this Godzilla does not necessarily hate humanity, instead only causing destruction in reaction to being attacked by humans initially, and goes on to form a more friendly relationship with the human race as his adventures continue. This Godzilla, like his predecessor, is immune to regular human weapons thanks to his incredibly tough armored skin. He also has amazing regenerative abilities and immense arm strength, letting him lift heavy objects or deliver powerful strikes. His long tail is flexible and strong enough to knock over buildings and other monsters. Godzilla can even use it to launch himself into the air and leap at enemies. In Godzilla Raids Again, Godzilla uses the white radioactive mist called incandescent light, but starting in the movie King Kong vs. Godzilla, this mist is replaced by a more focused blue beam, known as atomic breath, which can reach temperatures over 100,000 degrees Celsius. Additionally, this Godzilla is capable of generating powerful magnetic fields. Later on, Godzilla is seen heading towards Osaka. The Japan Self-Defense Force cuts the city's lights and tries to lure Godzilla away with flares. Meanwhile, a group of convicts escape from their transport vehicle and lead police on a chase that ends with some of the convicts crashing into an oil refinery, causing a massive explosion. The explosion draws Godzilla back towards the city, forcing the JSDF to engage it. Anguirus, having been attracted by the flares, appears and starts fighting Godzilla, causing massive destruction across Osaka. Eventually, Godzilla kills Anguirus and returns to the sea. In a final encounter with Godzilla, the JASDF is able to defeat it by burying him with a large, man-made avalanche. 7 years later, Mr. Tako, the head of Pacific Pharmaceuticals, is annoyed with the TV shows his company sponsors and wants something more exciting to boost his ratings. When a doctor tells him about a giant monster found on Faroe Island, Tako sees a golden opportunity to use it for publicity. He sends 2 men to capture the creature. Meanwhile, an American nuclear submarine, the Seahawk, gets stuck in an iceberg. The submarine causes the ice to melt, and this iceberg happens to contain Godzilla, who's been trapped inside since the 1955 avalanche. Godzilla destroys the submarine and starts heading towards Japan, causing chaos along the way by attacking a military base as he moves south. Meanwhile, on Faro Island, a giant octopus attacks the village, searching for pharolactin juice made from a special red berry. The giant octopus is, well, a giant octopus. It attacks its enemies with its tentacles and has a grip strong enough to hold even Godzilla in place. Unlike other octopi, it is amphibious, capable of spending extended periods of time on land. Shortly after the octopus emerges, Faro Island's mysterious protector, King Kong, shows up and defeats the octopus. King Kong is a massive ape living on Faro Island. The island's natives see him as a powerful demon god and regularly pray to him, as well as offer him pharolactin juice as a form of tribute. Kong is still destructive and aggressive, but he's shown to be more sympathetic than Godzilla. He's mostly happy living on Faro Island, staying behind the giant wall that the natives built for him in exchange for their offerings and worship. Kong also ends up protecting the villagers by fighting off threats like the giant octopus when they attack. After drinking the juice, Kong falls asleep as the islanders perform a ceremony. As he sleeps, the two men that Mr. Taco sent to retrieve him load him onto a raft and transport him back to Japan. Mr. Taco shows up on the ship, but a Japanese self-defense force ship stops them, saying Kong can't be brought to Japan. Meanwhile, Godzilla lands in Japan and starts wreaking havoc. Sensing Godzilla's presence, Kong wakes up, breaks free from the raft, and heads toward the mainland. When he confronts Godzilla, he throws giant rocks at him, but Godzilla uses his heat ray to burn Kong, who then retreats. The JSDF tries to trap Godzilla by digging a massive pit filled with explosives and poison gas, but it fails to harm him. They then set up a giant electric barrier around Tokyo, which is actually effective against Godzilla. Meanwhile, Kong approaches Tokyo, tearing through the power lines and feeding off the electricity. Once in the city, Kong grabs a woman named Fumiko and takes her to the National Diet building, where he climbs to the top. The JSDF responds by launching vaporized juice at Kong, putting him to sleep and rescuing Fumiko. After this, the JSDF comes up with a plan to transport Kong by balloons and drop him near Godzilla, hoping the two monsters will kill each other. The next morning, Kong is airlifted by helicopter and dropped near Godzilla at the top of Mount Fuji, and the two begin to fight. After some fighting, Godzilla tries to burn Kong alive with his atomic breath and ends up setting the area around Kong on fire. But just when things are looking real bad for Kong, a bolt of lightning strikes him from the stormy skies, supercharging him. The fight picks back up as the two monsters battle their way down the mountain. This eventually leads to the two monsters falling off a cliff into the bay, where they briefly continue fighting underwater. Following the conflict, Kong is the only one to surface, the victor of the confrontation, and he then swims back to his home island. Sometime later, after a typhoon hits Kurata Bay, reporter Ichiro Sakai and his photographer Junko discover an iridescent object among the wreckage. Following this, a giant egg is found floating near another beach. Sakai seeks out zoologist Miura to ask him questions about the egg, but they soon learn that the villagers sold the egg to businessman Kumayama, who plans to exploit it for his company, Happy Enterprises. At a local hotel, Sakai, Junko, and Miura run into Kumayama in the lobby. Kumayama meets with his financial backer, Jiro Torahata, and reveals his plan to build a massive resort around the egg. Suddenly, they're visited by the Shobijin, a pair of twin fairies, who warn them that the egg belonged to Mothra and was washed ashore by the recent typhoon. Mothra is a giant moth deity with colorful wings. Mothra is the guardian goddess of Infant Island in the South Pacific, where she is constantly reborn through an egg. The island's natives worship her, and she is represented by two telepathic fairies known as the Shobijin. When Mothra's egg hatches, it reveals a massive brown segmented caterpillar with glowing eyes, resembling a silkworm. Over time, the caterpillar spins a silk cocoon around itself, entering the pupa stage. From this cocoon, the adult Mothra emerges as a gigantic moth-like creature with vibrant, colorful wings. Mothra's life cycle, where the death of the adult often coincides with the hatching of the larva, mirrors the myth of the phoenix. Mothra can fly at Mach 3 in her adult stage, making her fast enough to dodge multiple attacks from Godzilla's tail and claws. In her larval form, she can spit a stream of silk. In her debut film, she wraps Tokyo Tower in silk to create a cocoon, and the silk is strong enough to stop helicopter blades from spinning. Mothra is immune to most conventional weapons. She's unaffected by oil fires in the water and can swim through them, and the atomic heat ray guns don't harm her, though they do burn her cocoon. As an adult, Mothra can produce powerful wind gusts by flapping her wings, reaching speeds of 500 meters per second. These gusts cause shockwaves, destroying cities, knocking Godzilla off his feet, and damaging buildings, vehicles, and bridges. In combat, Mothra uses her small claws to attack other monsters. In her larval form, she can destroy structures by charging through them, including large dams. Her last-ditch weapon is a poisonous yellow powder she releases from her wings, though it's only used when she's near death. The Shobijin try to convince the businessmen to return the egg, but they refuse. The Shobijin then seek out Sakai, Junko, and Miura for help. The trio tries to talk sense into the businessmen, but get nowhere. In the end, the Shobijin are forced to return to Infant Island without the egg. Sakai writes a series of sharp articles criticizing Happy Enterprises for their mistreatment of the Shobijin, but the company dismisses them as slander. They go ahead with opening the Happy Center to the public. Miura decontaminates Sakai and Junko after their exposure to the object they found earlier, revealing it to be dangerously radioactive. The trio returns to Kurata Beach to investigate why the object was irradiated, only to discover Godzilla's emergence. As Godzilla rampages, citizens flee, and the Japan Self-Defense Forces are called in to try to steer Godzilla toward the coast and minimize damage. Following a suggestion from a colleague, Sakai, Junko, and Miura travel to Infant Island to ask the Shobijin for Mothra's help against Godzilla. When they arrive, they're captured by the island's natives who, after hearing the trio's plea for Mothra's help, reject their request. The natives and the Shobijin see Godzilla's rampage as divine punishment for outsiders polluting their island with nuclear tests and for not returning the egg. Junko and Sakai argue that innocent people are also in danger and that no one has the right to decide who should live or die. They appeal to the Shobijin, insisting that while civilization is flawed, it's still trying to improve. This appeal works, and Mothra agrees to help. However, the Shobijin warn that Mothra is near the end of her life. In Japan, the JSDF launches several unsuccessful attempts to stop Godzilla. Meanwhile, Kumayama, having lost his fortune, confronts Torahata at his hotel. After attacking Torahata, he steals his secret funds, but Torahata shoots him and tries to escape with the money. However, he's crushed to death when Godzilla destroys the hotel. Godzilla then reaches Nishi Bay and prepares to destroy the egg. But Mothra intervenes, battling Godzilla to protect her egg. Mothra is ultimately overpowered by Godzilla's atomic breath, and with her last bit of strength, she flies to the egg and dies beside it. As the JSDF continues their attack on Godzilla, Sakai, Junko, Miura, and the Shobijin stay by the egg, with the twins using musical incantations to try to speed up its hatching. On Infant Island, the natives join a ritual dance in response to the twins' music. Eventually, twin larvae hatch from the egg and go to face Godzilla. Godzilla and the larvae fight, and the larvae trap Godzilla in their silk, causing him to tumble into the sea. The larvae, along with the Shobijin, then return to Infant Island. On an unusually warm winter night in 1965, reporter Naoko Shindo joins a UFO club searching for flying saucers. After a failed hunt, the club's leader claims the aliens aren't showing themselves because of a non-believer in their group. He insists that strange global events like the warm winter hint that something terrible is coming. Moments later, a meteor shower hits Japan. Meanwhile, Naoko's brother, Detective Shindo, is assigned to protect a princess from political enemies while she visits Japan. However, while flying over Japan, the princess becomes possessed by a mysterious voice, which tells her to jump from the plane just before it's blown up by a bomb. Elsewhere, scientists studying one of the meteors discover it has magnetic properties and is growing in size. At the same time, a mysterious woman claiming to be from Venus appears and predicts disaster, starting with a volcanic eruption at Mount Aso. Naoko investigates and realizes the woman looks strikingly like the princess. As the princess's doppelganger, dubbed the Prophetess, warns of disaster, the volcanic eruption unleashes the giant pterosaur, Rodan. Rodan is a pteranodon that was trapped in an egg under Mount Aso for 200 million years. When nuclear testing caused radiation to leak into the cave combined with rising temperatures and volcanic gases, it triggered the egg to hatch. It is unknown how Rodan is so big, but the most plausible theory is due to the effects of radiation. Around the same time of the original Rodan's appearance, another Rodan appeared, and the two mated. It's unclear if this Rodan is one of the original survivors from 1956 or possibly one of their offspring. Rodan stands on two legs and has a spiky chest, two horns on the back of its head, and a sharp pointed beak. In the original Rodan movie, the two Rodans are shown as terrifying, destructive creatures with a loyal bond to one another. In Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Rodan shows a lot more personality. He mocks Godzilla when he's wrapped in Mothra's silk and gets visibly annoyed when Godzilla's atomic breath strikes him. In later Showa films, Rodan becomes a loyal ally to Godzilla. Rodan can fly at speeds of up to Mach 1.5, letting him cover large distances quickly and easily outmaneuver enemy aircraft. While flying, he creates powerful shockwaves that can destroy buildings, bridges, and level entire city blocks. In his debut film, Rodan could fire a radioactive wind blast from his mouth that destroyed anything in its path, but this ability hasn't been used since. Rodan is tough and resistant to conventional weapons, shrugging off attacks like Godzilla's atomic breath and King Ghidorah's gravity beams. As well as being fast, Rodan is physically strong. He can knock enemies like King Ghidorah out of the sky by flying into them at full speed, and uses talons to attack while flying. He's also strong enough to lift and carry heavy objects or even other monsters. Godzilla also emerges from the sea, and soon the two monsters clash. Meanwhile, the prophetess insists that King Ghidorah, a space monster responsible for destroying Venus thousands of years ago, has arrived on Earth to do the same. The team of scientists discover that the meteor is linked to Ghidorah's arrival. King Ghidorah is a massive, golden, three-headed dragon that walks on two legs. Each of its three heads sits on a long neck with two horns, a crescent shape, and a mane. It has large bat-like wings and has two long tails. King Ghidorah stands mostly upright but with a slight lean forward. At 100 meters tall, it's the tallest kaiju in the Showa Godzilla series. King Ghidorah is a malevolent monster, with his main goal being to annihilate all other creatures, and having previously wiped out entire civilizations with no explanation. He can fly at speeds of Mach 3 on Earth and reach Mach 400 in space. Ghidorah's most famous attack is his gravity beam, lightning-like blasts from each of his three mouths. These beams are as powerful as Godzilla's atomic breath, capable of causing massive explosions and launching giant monsters through the air. He can also create hurricane-force winds by flapping his wings, knocking over buildings and other kaiju. Ghidorah also has magnetic powers, which he uses to generate fields or control gravity, even suspending objects in the air. Ghidorah's scales are poisonous, and he can release toxic gas from his mouths and tails. His horns act as radar to navigate through space, and even let him communicate telepathically. His tails have sharp tips that can cut other kaiju, and he has multiple brains. One in each of his heads for attacking, a central brain in one of his necks, and a secondary brain in his torso. As chaos ensues with Godzilla, Rodan, and the newly arrived Ghidorah wreaking havoc, the government proposes a desperate plan to have Mothra team up with Godzilla and Rodan to defeat King Ghidorah. Though initially reluctant, Godzilla and Rodan eventually join forces with Mothra to battle the space monster. With the combined efforts of the Earth monsters, King Ghidorah is defeated and flees into space. In the aftermath, Shindo rescues the prophetess, who regains her memories and realizes she is Princess Salno of Venus. The princess thanks Shindo for saving her before she departs for her homeworld. Meanwhile, Godzilla and Rodan look on as Mothra swims back to Infant Island, marking the end of the crisis. In the same year, astronauts Fuji and Glenn are sent to investigate Planet X, a mysterious world located on the far side of Jupiter. There they meet the Zillions, advanced human-like aliens, and their leader, the Controller. The Zillions explain that their planet has been under constant attack by a powerful creature they call Monster Zero, which the astronauts recognize as King Ghidorah. The Zillions live in fear of Ghidorah's repeated assaults, and the Controller requests that Earth lend them Godzilla and Rodan to help them fight the creature. In exchange, they offer a cure for cancer to humanity. The astronauts agree to return to Earth with this request. Meanwhile, on Earth, an inventor named Tetsuo creates a personal alarm emitting a powerful siren, calling it the Lady Guard Alarm. Tetsuo is romantically involved with Fuji's sister, Haruno, though Fuji disapproves of him. He sells it to a businesswoman named Namikawa, but she disappears before paying. Tetsuo later spots Namikawa with Glenn, who she is dating, and after the two finish their encounter, Tetsuo follows her, only to be captured by Zillion spies. Fuji and Glenn become increasingly suspicious of the Zillion's true intentions. These concerns grow when Zillion spacecraft appear in Japan and transport Godzilla and Rodan to Planet X, where the monsters are used to fight King Ghidorah. The controller also sends Glenn, Fuji, and the scientist Sakurai to monitor the operation. After a fierce battle, Godzilla and Rodan manage to drive Ghidorah away, leading to a victory dance from Godzilla. Meanwhile, the astronauts sneak away to explore further. They encounter two identical Zillion women who look just like Namikawa, much to Glenn's shock. When the astronauts are caught and brought before the controller, they are reprimanded but not punished. The controller then gives them a tape containing the cure and sends them back to Earth, leaving Godzilla and Rodan behind. On Earth, the tape is played for the world's leaders, but it contains an unexpected ultimatum. The Zillions demand Earth's surrender and willing colonization, or else they will unleash destruction through Godzilla, Rodan, and Ghidorah, all now under the Zillions' mental control. Glenn confronts Namikawa, only to discover she is in fact a Zillion spy. She admits that she has fallen in love with him, but her commander arrives and executes her for betraying the Zillion cause, although she does manage to slip a note into Glenn's pocket before she dies. Now in prison together, Glenn and Tetsuo read the note, which reveals that Tetsuo's alarm can disrupt the Zillion's technology. Using a prototype, Tetsuo activates the alarm, weakening their captors and enabling their escape. Sakurai and Fuji work together to come up with a plan to disrupt the Zillion's control over Godzilla and Rodan. The sound from the Lady Guard alarm is broadcast over the radio, leading to the thwarting of the Zillion invasion, and the monsters are freed from their control with the assistance of A-cycle light ray gun trucks. Godzilla, Rodan, and Ghidorah awaken and resume their battle. After a fierce struggle, all three monsters fall off a cliff into the ocean, and Ghidorah flees into space. As onlookers speculate whether Godzilla and Rodan are alive, Glenn and Fuji share a moment of relief and acknowledge Tetsuo's crucial role in the victory. Fuji, no longer disapproving of Tetsuo, thanks him for his contribution. Sakurai, still focused on Planet X, informs Glenn and Fuji they will be heading back as ambassadors to study the planet further. 1 year later, a woman named Kane has a son named Yata who goes missing in the South Seas, so she consults a sidekick who tells her that he's still alive. Yata's brother Ryota tries to get the authorities to search again, but they refuse, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. He hears about a dance marathon offering a boat as a prize, but arrives too late to participate. Two contestants, Ichino and Nita, show him some boats, including one which they board. However, they encounter Yashimura, who claims to be the yacht's owner, but he's actually a thief hiding from the police. Yashimura agrees to allow the three to stay there overnight so long as they leave in the morning. However, upon waking up, the men find themselves stranded at sea as a result of Ryota stealing the boat, and they are soon shipwrecked on Lecce Island after a violent storm and a mysterious giant claw destroys their boat. On the island, the men stumble upon the base of the Red Bamboo, a terrorist organization who enslaves natives from Infant Island. They also learn that the island is home to a dangerous giant crab named Ebirah. Ebirah is a crustacean that grew to enormous size due to the nuclear waste created by the Red Bamboo's weapon operations on Lecce Island. Ebirah's appearance is similar to that of a giant lobster or shrimp. He is extremely violent and aggressive, as he fiercely protects the waters around Lecce Island, which the Red Bamboo used to keep people from reaching the island. However, Ebirah isn't loyal to the Red Bamboo and is more focused on defending his territory. After stumbling across an escaping native woman named Dio, the group attempts to avoid capture by the Red Bamboo, and they wind up hiding in a cave where they find Godzilla asleep. They then proceed to break into the Red Bamboo base, where they discover the organization is attempting to create nuclear weapons. After a convoluted series of events, the group decides to awaken Godzilla using a makeshift lightning rod, hoping he can help them. Godzilla awakens and defeats Ebirah in battle. Ryota's balloon lands on Infant Island. Don't ask. during a native ceremony to awaken Mothra. He finds his brother Yatta, who was rescued by the islanders after a shipwreck. Ryota tells the islanders about the Red Bamboo's activities, but the Shobijin are already aware. Yatta volunteers to help rescue the prisoners on Lechi Island, so Ryota and Yatta head off with supplies to rescue the prisoners. Godzilla, meanwhile, is busy napping on a cliff when a giant condor attacks. Godzilla easily defeats the giant condor, but Red Bamboo fighter jets then try to take down Godzilla, but he destroys them, giving Dio and the others time to escape. Godzilla then attacks the Red Bamboo base, and the Red Bamboo commander orders a self-destruct. Godzilla wrecks the place and the base collapses, but a scientist triggers the self-destruct before dying, forcing Yashimura and the others to flee. The Red Bamboo leave, and as they sail away, Ebirah destroys their ship. Godzilla, sensing Ebirah, goes back into the water for a showdown. Godzilla overpowers Ebirah, forcing the giant crab to retreat. The group reunites, and they set up a giant net for Mothra. When Mothra arrives, she scoops everyone up in the net and flies away. As the island begins to explode, Godzilla escapes into the ocean. The group celebrates as Mothra returns to Infant Island with her passengers, and Godzilla roars triumphantly from the water. 1 year later, on Solgel Island, a group of UN scientists, led by Tsunetsu Kasumi, are conducting a secret weather control experiment. Suddenly, a man named Goro Maki, an investigative journalist, parachutes onto the island and asks to document their work. The scientists refuse, but let him stay under the condition that he helps with chores and photography. Maki sees a giant praying mantis in the jungle and later spots a mysterious native girl swimming in the water. As the experiment begins, things go wrong. Radio interference causes the weather control system to malfunction, triggering a heat wave and radiation storms. When the storms clear, Maki and Kasumi discover that the mantises have mutated into massive kaiju, which Maki names Kamacuras. In the Showa series, Kamacuras has a reddish-brown body with rough, bumpy skin. Kamacuras has wings that extend from its abdomen, allowing it to fly. Kamacuras' right arm is spear-like and its left claw is shaped like a sickle. It also has a highly aggressive and hostile personality, and is aggressive towards all creatures. The trouble then escalates when the Kamacuras discover an egg that hatches into Manila, a baby Godzilla. Manila is an infant member of Godzilla's species. Both the 1998 book The Official Godzilla Compendium and Toho's official English website state that Godzilla adopted Manila and is therefore not his biological father. Manila resembles a smaller, chubbier version of Godzilla. His snout is slightly upturned and his eyes are larger and positioned forward on his head, giving him a more human appearance. Manila is much friendlier with humans than the other monsters in the Showa Godzilla films, while often demonstrating human-like behaviors and emotions. Manila also displays childlike traits such as throwing tantrums. While he's generally scared of other monsters, he does show moments of bravery even though he's usually outmatched by them physically. Manila's main weapon is his atomic smoke rings. While much weaker than Godzilla's atomic breath, these rings can interact with physical objects and even tighten around enemies, allowing for strangulation. Godzilla then arrives to protect this child, fighting off the Kamacuras. During the chaos, Maki finds the native girl Seiko, who reveals she's the daughter of a Japanese scientist who died on the island years ago. Seiko leads Maki and the scientist to her cave after the camp is destroyed. As they recuperate, many scientists fall ill with a fever known as Solgel fever, and Seiko explains the cure is found in a boiling lake deep on the island. Maki and Seiko venture there, but find Godzilla and Manila nearby. They witness Godzilla teaching Manila how to use atomic breath. After collecting the cure, Seiko returns to the cave and treats the sick. Things take a darker turn when Seiko is attacked by the Kamacuras and later by a new kaiju, Kumanga. Kumanga is a giant spider. A vicious predator, it attacks anything in sight, including humans. However, later in the Showa series, Kumanga is seen living peacefully with other monsters on Monsterland and even helps them in battle. Kumanga can spit webbing from his mouth, which is effective at trapping both humans and other kaiju. He also has a venomous stinger that he can shoot from his mouth, and the venom is strong enough to kill a Kamacuras instantly. Kumanga is vulnerable to heat. His otherwise nearly indestructible webbing can be cut with fire, and sustained blasts from Godzilla and Manila's atomic breath attacks can be lethal. Manila attempts to assist the humans, but is caught in Kumanga's webbing and calls out for Godzilla's help. Godzilla arrives, and the father and son duo battle Kumonga. With the weather control device now working, snow begins to fall and the island starts to freeze. Godzilla and Manila defeat Kumonga using their atomic breath, but as the island freezes, Manila collapses from exhaustion. Godzilla refuses to leave him and embraces his son in the snow. The humans are rescued by a UN submarine, leaving the monsters to fall into hibernation. Years later, a boy named Ken Yano is playing with his Godzilla toys when his family encounters a strange black tadpole brought inland by a local fisherman. Dr. Toru Yano, Ken's father, is a marine biologist, but cannot identify the black tadpole. However, as the family watches news about a massive monster attack at the bay, Ken realizes the monster is a grown-up version of the tadpole. Dr. Yano investigates by taking a scuba suit into the bay, but encounters and is severely burned by the creature. Following this, Ken proceeds to name the monster Hedorah. Hedorah is an alien creature from the dark gaseous nebula in the Orion constellation, arriving on Earth after traveling over 243 light-years on a comet. It's made of a mineral called hedorium, and evolved into a kaiju by fusing with pollutants. Hedorah has several distinct stages, each with similar features. In its early stages, it resembles a tadpole, and later it evolves into a large quadrupedal form. In its flying stage, it takes on a saucer-like shape, and in its final perfect stage, it becomes humanoid. While Hedorah is driven more by its biological instincts than malice, it does show increasing aggression and intelligence, especially in its encounter with Godzilla. It responds to Godzilla's taunts and even mimics his gestures. In the final battle, it shows signs of amusement, laughing while attacking Godzilla. Hedorah's main form of attack is to launch pieces of its body at its enemies, causing burning or suffocation. It's precise enough to target vulnerable spots like Godzilla's eye with deadly accuracy. Hedorah doesn't need oxygen to survive and feeds on pollutants, creating a corrosive sulfuric acid mist as a byproduct. This mist can dissolve metal and destroy organic life in seconds. Hedorah's body is immune to conventional weapons as they just pass through it. Its acid-coated, amorphous form make it incredibly tough and difficult to harm. After sinking the oil tanker and then attacking both Ken and Toru, Hedorah's dangerous nature becomes public knowledge. Ken believes Godzilla will come to the rescue to fight Hedorah and save humanity from the pollution monster. Hedorah evolves into multiple forms, from slime-covered land creature to a flying acid-spitting monster, and as Hedorah wreaks havoc, including a deadly attack on a nightclub, Dr. Yano figures out that drying the creature out might be the key to defeating it. He uses electrodes to dry a small sample of the creature, and the method works. Godzilla eventually confronts Hedorah in its largest, most dangerous form, and the two monsters engage in battle. With the help of the Japanese self-defense forces, who are powering large-scale electrodes, Godzilla manages to dry out Hedorah, defeating it. Despite Godzilla's victory, Ken warns that pollution could cause another Hedorah to emerge in the future. The film ends with Godzilla walking away, leaving humanity to deal with its ongoing environmental problems. Shortly after this, a group of giant cockroach-like aliens from the dying M-Space Hunter Nebula plan to invade Earth after their home planet became uninhabitable due to pollution. They disguise themselves as dead humans and work at a theme park, World Children's Land, which has a Godzilla tower as its main attraction. Their goal is to use two space monsters, Gigan and King Ghidorah, to destroy humanity for their colonization purposes. Gigan is a cyborg created by the M-Space Hunter Nebula aliens. He's a bizarre monster, with a saw blade built into his stomach, hook hands, smaller hook toes, a spiked tail, and fins on his back. He also has a red cybernetic visor for an eye and a metal beak. In the Showa era, he has dark green skin and golden scales. Known for being one of Godzilla's most violent foes, Gigan is brutal in combat, often using his hooks and buzzsaw to tear apart his enemies. However, in the Showa series, Gigan can sometimes act like a coward, retreating when things go wrong and leaving his allies behind. Manga artist Kotaka gets caught up in the alien scheme when he's hired as a concept artist for the park. He and his friends accidentally discover one of the aliens' action signal tapes, and when played, it alerts Godzilla and Anguirus to the suspicious situation. It is unclear when the second-generation Anguirus first showed up on Monster Island. Unlike some of Godzilla's other allies who team up with him out of necessity, this Anguirus has a real friendship with Godzilla. This is especially clear in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla when Anguirus recognizes that the fake Godzilla is an imposter and attacks it, with one character acknowledging on how unusual it is to see Anguirus going after his friend, Godzilla. Godzilla sends Anguirus to investigate, but the Japan Self-Defense Force ends up driving it away. Anguirus reports back to Godzilla, who heads to Japan alongside Anguirus to stop the aliens and their monsters. After a fierce battle, Godzilla and Anguirus defeat Gigan and Ghidorah, sending them back into space. Still in early 1971, a nuclear test causes major damage to Monster Island, sending Anguirus deep into the Earth, and nearly pulling Godzilla down with it. Meanwhile, an underwater civilization called Seatopia, which has thrived for millennia, is suffering due to the earthquakes caused by recent nuclear tests. Their emperor, Emperor Antonio, plans revenge by unleashing Megalon, their giant beetle god, on the surface world. Megalon is a massive insect-like creature that lives deep underground in the kingdom of Seatopia. The Seatopians worship him as a god and summon him to protect their land from threats. He can fire a yellow lightning-esque beam from his horn, known as the Laser Beast Killer Beam, which glows before being launched. His horn also works as a radar, and his compound eyes give him enhanced vision. In addition to his beam, Megalon can spit geothermal napalm from his mouth. He has drill-like limbs for close combat or for burrowing underground. His body is protected by an incredibly tough shell, similar to diamond in hardness. On land, an inventor named Goro Ibuki, his brother Rokuro, and their friend Hiroshi Jinkawa are working on a humanoid robot, Jet Jaguar. When the Seatopians attack them to steal the robot, the trio attempts to fend them off, but the Seatopians eventually kidnap Hiroshi and take control of Jet Jaguar to guide Megalon and destroy Tokyo. Jet Jaguar was created by scientist Goro Ibuki, but he eventually became self-aware and gained the ability to modify his own programming. Once aware, he decided to use his powers for good, fighting to protect others like a true superhero. He has the ability to change his size, growing from 1.8 meters to a towering 50 meters, which lets him take on giant monsters like Megalon and Gigan. Jet Jaguar can also fly at speeds of up to Mach 3.5, and even when carrying weights as heavy as Godzilla, he shows no sign of strain. In combat, he's a skilled fighter, able to hold his own against kaiju like Megalon. The Japan Self-Defense Force struggles to stop the monsters, so the trio hatches a plan to regain control of Jet Jaguar and get Godzilla's help. After rescuing the robot, Goro sends Jet Jaguar to Monster Island, where it finds Godzilla and convinces him to join the fight. Jet Jaguar then returns to battle Megalon in Tokyo, and the Seatopians call in backup from the M Space Hunter Nebula aliens who send Gigan to help. Just as things start to seem dire, Godzilla arrives to turn the tide. Together, Godzilla and Jet Jaguar defeat Megalon and Gigan, and the opposing monsters flee. After the fight, Jet Jaguar and Godzilla share a handshake before the monsters part ways, with Jet Jaguar returning to normal size and heading home. In 1974, a priestess has a vision of a city being destroyed by a giant monster. Meanwhile, Masahiko Shimizu finds a strange metal while exploring a cave and brings it to Professor Miyajima for analysis. His brother Kaisuke is involved in an excavation where they uncover a chamber with ancient artifacts and a mural featuring a prophecy. The prophecy warns of a black mountain in the sky and a giant monster that will try to destroy the world, but two other monsters will appear to save it when a red moon sets and the sun rises in the west. Kaisuke and archaeologist Saiko Kaneshiro translate the prophecy, and she takes a statue of Okinawa's guardian monster, King Caesar, for study. However, they're stalked by two men, one claiming to be a reporter and the other trying to steal the statue. The thief fails and runs off. Soon after, a black cloud resembling a mountain appears and Godzilla emerges from Mount Fuji, starting a rampage. Despite having been peaceful with humans in recent years, Godzilla goes on the attack. Anguirus, Godzilla's ally, tries to confront Godzilla but is nearly killed. Eventually, the real Godzilla arrives to face off against the rampaging second Godzilla, which turns out to be Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla is packed with weapons, including the space beam, which is similar to Godzilla's atomic breath, and a device in its neck that launches small missiles. Its fingers are equipped with missiles as well, and its chest can open up to reveal a powerful cross-attack beam. Mechagodzilla can fly at Mach 5 thanks to propulsion jets in its feet, and its body is made out of space titanium, an incredibly strong metal 10 times stronger than standard steel. It can also form a defensive shield called the Defense Neo Barrier, which can block attacks such as Godzilla's atomic breath. Mechagodzilla severely injures Godzilla, and the two monsters then retreat from the battle. Miyajima theorizes that Mechagodzilla is an alien superweapon. Meanwhile, Kaisuke and Psycho head back to the temple with the statue but are ambushed by the thief again. During a fight, the thief's face melts away, revealing an ape-like alien. He tries to kill Kaisuke, but is suddenly shot by a mysterious gunman. Meanwhile, Godzilla arrives at Monster Island. Masahiko, Miyajima, and his daughter Ikuko explore the cave where the space titanium was found and are captured by aliens from the third planet of the black hole, who plan to use Mechagodzilla to conquer Earth. Their leader, Kuranuma, forces Miyajima to repair the robot, while Kaisuke meets the reporter, who reveals himself to be Nanbara, an Interpol agent investigating the aliens. Nanbara and Kaisuke infiltrate the alien base and rescue the prisoners, although some are recaptured not too long afterwards. The next day, a lunar eclipse and red moon occur and the sun rises in the west, marking the prophecy signs. Kaisuke and the others realize they need to awaken King Caesar. With the help of the priestess, they place the statue in the temple, which leads them to King Caesar's resting place. As Mechagodzilla is activated, the priestess sings to summon King Caesar, who awakens just in time to fight alongside Godzilla. King Caesar is a legendary guardian monster from Okinawa, created to protect the Azumi royal family. He first appeared in ancient times to help drive off invaders from the mainland of Japan. His design is based on the Koma Inu, a mythical creature which combines elements of a dog and a lion. King Caesar has brown skin and patches of light brown fur, mainly on his head. His face is canine, with sharp teeth, a flat nose, and red gemstone-like eyes. There's a crown-like formation of protrusions on his head, including a green gemstone in the middle. He has 3 claws on each hand and foot, and his short tail ends in a fur-covered point that sticks up behind him. One of his most unique abilities is his prism eyes, which can absorb enemy energy beams and fire them back at multiple times their original power. The two monsters face off against Mechagodzilla, and when it tries to flee, Godzilla uses stored electricity to create an electromagnetic field that pulls the robot back, allowing him to tear off its head and destroy it. Meanwhile, Nanbara and the team manage to escape and sabotage the alien base, killing their captors before fleeing as the base explodes. With the aliens defeated, Godzilla retreats to the sea, and King Caesar returns to its resting place. The humans celebrate their victory as peace returns to Okinawa. Interpol agents head to the Okinawan Sea to search for the remains of Mechagodzilla, hoping to learn more about its creator, the alien simians. But their mission goes awry when a giant sea-dwelling dinosaur called Titanosaurus attacks their submarine, causing the crew to vanish. Titanosaurus is a giant sea creature. His skin is bright red with black and yellow specks, and his underbelly is beige. He was discovered in 1960 by Dr. Shinzo Mifune, who was studying sea animals at the time, and the scientist began researching how to control Titanosaurus. Though he was mocked by the scientific community, he continued his research into the control device with help from his daughter, Katsura. By 1975, the device was complete, and it turned the peaceful Titanosaurus into a rampaging monster. Titanosaurus can whip up powerful winds and whirlpools while swinging his tail, creating winds that reach up to 320 meters per second. Despite his size, he's surprisingly agile, capable of leaping high enough to take out fighter jets by colliding with them in midair. He's also incredibly strong, able to hold his own against Godzilla in close combat. Interpol investigates the missing submarine, and with the help of marine biologist Akira Ichinose, they are able to trace research on Titanosaurus to the scientist Shinzo Mifune. They meet with Mifune's daughter, Katsura, who claims her father is dead and that she burned his research on Titanosaurus. However, Mifune is in fact alive and working with Suda, a simian agent, to rebuild Mechagodzilla. The aliens offered Mifune assistance in wiping out humanity, which is Mifune's ultimate goal, so that the simian aliens can take over the world. Ichinose eventually catches feelings and falls for Katsura and, in turn, gives her crucial Interpol intel about the simians, Mechagodzilla, and Titanosaurus. However, it turns out that Katsura is a cyborg, having been transformed after a near-fatal accident as a child, and is now part of Mechagodzilla's control system. Mifune then decides to release Titanosaurus on Yokosuka, causing chaos. Interpol discovers that Titanosaurus is vulnerable to supersonic waves, but Katsura sabotages their supersonic device. It is then that Godzilla shows up and beats Titanosaurus in combat, forcing it to retreat. Later, when Ichinose visits Katsura, the simians capture him and unleash Mechagodzilla 2 and Titanosaurus on Tokyo. Interpol quickly repairs their wave oscillator, and the Japanese military struggles to hold off the monsters. Godzilla arrives, and Titanosaurus is distracted with the wave oscillator, allowing Godzilla to focus on Mechagodzilla. Interpol agents infiltrate the aliens' base and manage to take down Mifune and the aliens. As the last of the simians try to escape, Godzilla shoots down their ships with its atomic breath. Katsura, although mortally wounded, manages to destroy Mechagodzilla's control device before dying in Ichinose's arms. Godzilla then tosses Mechagodzilla into a chasm and blows it up with his atomic breath, and also blasts Titanosaurus off of a cliff, leaving it to an unknown fate. Having saved the day once again, Godzilla returns to the sea. Many years later, at the end of the 20th century, all of Earth's kaiju are locked away on Monsterland, under the watch of the United Nations Science Committee, also known as the UNSC. But when communications are lost with the island and the monsters start attacking major cities around the world, Captain Yamabe and his crew aboard the spaceship Moonlight SY-3 are sent to investigate. They discover that the scientists on Monsterland are being mind-controlled by an alien race called the Kilax, who are also controlling monsters in order to convince humanity to submit to colonization. As the monsters wreak global havoc, the Kilax turn their eyes toward Japan in order to set up a base near Mount Fuji. The UNSC learned that the aliens are controlling the monsters through scattered devices around the world. However, after the UNSC recovers these devices, the Kilax switch the broadcasting signal to a base on the moon. The crew of the SY-3 destroys the Kilax lunar outpost, transferring control of the monsters to the UNSC. In response, the Kilax summon King Ghidorah to defend their base. After a fierce battle, Earth's kaiju team up and defeat Ghidorah. The Kilax then unleash their last weapon, the Fire Dragon, which is actually a UFO, and it begins torching Tokyo. However, Godzilla takes down the Kilax base, and Captain Yamabe destroys the Fire Dragon. With the Kilax defeated, peace is restored, and the kaiju return to Monsterland. The Heisei era in Japan lasted from 1989 to 2019, marking the period when Emperor Akihito reigned. In terms of Godzilla films, the Heisei era refers to a set of 7 films made between 1984 and 1995, which held a shared continuity. Notably, The Return of Godzilla, released in 1984, was released during the Showa political era but is considered part of the Heisei series of movies because it rebooted the franchise and shares the Heisei continuity. The Heisei Godzilla films were known for their upscale in monster sizes and its monster evolutions, as most movies featured a kaiju with multiple forms as the monster changes and evolves throughout the film. The Heisei Godzilla series ended in 1995 with Godzilla vs. Destroya, which was supposed to be the last Japanese Godzilla movie for at least a decade, as American-made Godzilla films were expected to take over. That idea did not last too long. In this timeline, the events of the 1954 Godzilla film are still canon, with a different Godzilla emerging in 1984. The rest of the Showa continuity is not connected to the Heisei continuity. Now, we need to get something out of the way before we get into any of these films. In the film Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, there is a spectacular amount of convoluted time travel shenanigans that essentially creates 3 timelines within this one timeline. The terribly convoluted writing is so bizarre, it's worthy of its own video, with many internet theories which exist to try to explain what's actually happening, as it supposedly erases pieces of Godzilla's history, yet later movies reveal that everything Godzilla did still happened. Somehow. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. This video is long enough as it is, so I'm not going to deep dive into this any longer, but just know, if you're confused about it, welcome to the club. A Japanese fishing boat, the Yahatamaru No. 5, is caught in a fierce storm near Daikoku Island when a giant monster attacks and the crew is wiped out, apart from one survivor, Hiroshi Okumura, who is still badly injured. Reporter Goro Maki investigates and discovers that Godzilla has returned. However, the government suppresses Maki's story of the monster's return in order to prevent panic amongst the citizenry. Godzilla then attacks a Soviet submarine, triggering a diplomatic crisis between the United States and the Soviets until Japan reveals to them both that the attack is the result of Godzilla's return. The Japanese military prepares to face Godzilla using the Super X, a secret aircraft built to defend against nuclear threats. Godzilla is then attracted to a nuclear power plant as he begins feeding on the nuclear reactors. The Heisei Godzilla is a mutated Godzillasaurus, a type of dinosaur altered by the nuclear radiation of the Castle Bravo nuclear test. Unlike the more heroic Godzilla from the Showa era, the Heisei version is a return to the original Godzilla's destructive, antagonistic role. Its signature ability is still its atomic breath, a powerful blue beam of radiation capable of causing massive explosions. A stronger version of this attack, the Spiral Heat Ray, is introduced in the Heisei continuity. In addition to his atomic breath, Godzilla can release a nuclear pulse, emitting atomic energy in all directions from his body. He's incredibly tough, resistant to human weapons, and has impressive regenerative abilities, which are a major part of the Heisei storyline. As Godzilla attacks the nuclear plant, it ends up distracted by a flock of birds, leading to Dr. Hayashida discerning that Godzilla, like birds, uses the Earth's magnetic field to navigate, and he devises a plan to use a magnetic transmitter to lure Godzilla into a volcano. While Japan works on a peaceful solution amongst the world's superpowers to prevent nuclear escalation, the Soviets devise a plan to use their own missile to stop Godzilla. As Godzilla attacks Tokyo, the Super X unloads its ammunition on Godzilla and is able to knock it unconscious. However, during the chaos, the Russians fire a nuclear missile at Godzilla and the city. As evacuations are underway, the Soviets' missile is shot down by an American missile, and the resulting blast revives Godzilla. The Super X battles Godzilla but is eventually destroyed. Hayashida and his team, using a completed magnetic device, manage to lure Godzilla toward Mount Mihara, where he falls into the volcano. Akamura detonates bombs inside of the volcano, causing a volcanic eruption that seemingly seals Godzilla's fate. After Godzilla's rampage in 1985, his cells were covertly extracted to the Saradia Institute of Technology, where scientists conducted research on the potential for the cells to terraform deserts. Dr. Shiragami and his daughter Erika worked on the project, but a terrorist bombing destroyed the lab and killed Erika. 5 years later, Shiragami merges Erika's cells with a rose in an attempt to keep a part of her alive. Meanwhile, the Japanese military and a scientist, Kazuhiro Kirishima, are using Godzilla's cells to create a weapon, hoping it can stop Godzilla if he returns. They ask Shiragami for help, but he refuses. Tensions rise as different groups covet the Godzilla cells. A tremor from Mount Mihara ruins Shiragami's roses, leading him to agree to work with the military. He does so in order to get a sample of the Godzilla cells, which he combines with one of these roses, incidentally creating a monster called Biollante, which escapes to Lake Ashi. Biollante is a mutated mix of Godzilla, a rose, and a human. Initially, she appears as a giant rose with a small set of jaws inside the flower. She has a nucleus at the base of her body that glows and seems to emit energy, though its exact function is unclear. When Godzilla's atomic breath hits her in this form, she mutates into the plant beast. In her second form, Biollante's body is a terrifying mix of Godzilla's traits and plant matter. She has sharp teeth and 6 large tusks. Her body is full of vines and tendrils, some of which end in spear-like tips or sharp-toothed mouths. Biollante also holds the consciousness of Erika Shiragami, but it's suppressed by her Godzilla DNA, which influences her into a violent creature. She can constrict enemies with her tendrils and spit corrosive sap that can blind or damage opponents. Agents from the American Biomajor Corporation tried to blackmail Japan by planting explosives around Mount Mihara to free Godzilla unless the cells are handed over. Before a trade can be completed, the cells are stolen and the explosives are detonated in response. Godzilla is released and goes to battle Biollante. The two monsters fight, with Godzilla emerging victorious, but before it can reach a power plant to recharge, Godzilla is redirected to Osaka by a sidekick named Miki Saigusa. Despite attempts by the military to stop Godzilla with special bacteria-infused rockets, they fail to stop the monster. Shiragami theorizes that if they can raise Godzilla's body temperature, they should be able to use the bacteria to kill it. Biollante then returns in a more powerful form and battles Godzilla again. After a long fight, Godzilla defeats Biollante, but is infected by the bacteria, causing him to pass out. As Biollante dissolves, it turns into glowing spores that form an image of Erica in the sky. Shiragami is then shot by an assassin from Bio Major. The assassin is killed in a chase, and Godzilla reawakens, heading back into the ocean. In 1992, Godzilla is still recovering from being infected by the anti-nuclear energy bacteria. Author Kenichiro Terasawa is working on a book about the monster and uncovers the story of a group of Japanese soldiers on Lagos Island in 1944. While threatened by American forces during the Gilbert and Marshall Islands campaigns, they were saved by a mysterious dinosaur. Terasawa believes the dinosaur later mutated into Godzilla after a hydrogen bomb test in 1954. Yasuaki Shindo, a former soldier who led the garrison on Lagos, confirms the dinosaur's existence. Meanwhile, a UFO lands near Mount Fuji, and it's revealed that the UFO is a time machine from the future. The Futurians, a group from 2204, explain that in their timeline, Godzilla has destroyed Japan. They plan to go back to 1944 and stop the dinosaur from being irradiated, preventing Godzilla's creation. To prove their story, they show Terasawa a copy of his book that hasn't been written yet. The Futurians, Terasawa, and others travel back in time to Lagos Island, where they witness the dinosaur fight and kill American soldiers. The Futurians manage to teleport the dinosaur away to the Bering Strait, but secretly leave behind 3 creatures, the Dorats, which will later fuse into King Ghidorah after being irradiated. Back in 1992, the Futurians use King Ghidorah to attack Japan, demanding subjugation and ultimatum, which the Japanese refuse. The Dorats were engineered with DNA from the corpse of space super monster King Ghidorah, which was found on Venus by the Futurians. After the Dorats were exposed to the Castle Bravo hydrogen bomb test at Bikini Atoll, the Dorats mutated and fused into King Ghidorah. This version of King Ghidorah looks a lot like the Showa-era version, a massive, golden, 3-headed dragon with 2 tails. However, Heisei King Ghidorah's heads have straight horns and lack the manes the Showa King Ghidorah had, and it stands more upright rather than leaning forward. It possesses the same powers as the Showa King Ghidorah. Emi, a Japanese Futurian, feels sympathy for the Japanese and reveals to Terasawa that their true plan is to prevent Japan from becoming a superpower in the future by using Ghidorah to destroy Japan. Emi turns against the Futurians and joins Terasawa in attempting to stop the Futurians. Meanwhile, Shindo plans to recreate Godzilla by irradiating the dinosaur in the Bering Strait, but a Russian nuclear submarine from the 1970s already mutated the dinosaur into Godzilla, who then attacks Japan, where he battles Ghidorah. During the battle, Ghidorah is distracted when Emi sabotages the UFO's control over him, and Godzilla defeats Ghidorah, destroys the UFO, and kills the Futurians. Godzilla then goes on a rampage, killing Shindo and destroying parts of Japan. Emi, in response to this, returns to the future, and then returns to the past once again with a cybernetic version of Ghidorah, known as Mecha King Ghidorah, in order to fight Godzilla. Mecha King Ghidorah is a cyborg version of King Ghidorah, brought back to life and enhanced with futuristic tech in 2204. After King Ghidorah's middle head and wings were destroyed in his 1992 battle with Godzilla, they were replaced with advanced cybernetic parts. Mecha King Ghidorah can fly at Mach 4 with anti-gravity devices in his armor, meaning his wings aren't needed for flight. Instead, they function as solar panels. This allows Mecha King Ghidorah to stay airborne even if his wings get damaged. His central mechanical head can launch a triple laser beam from its gravity laser cannon. Despite Mecha King Ghidorah's attacks, Godzilla overpowers him, and after a final desperate maneuver by Mecha Ghidorah, both monsters fall into the ocean. However, from the bottom of the ocean, Godzilla roars triumphantly. In 1993, a meteor crashes into the ocean, awakening Godzilla once again. 6 months later, explorer Takuya Fujito is caught stealing an artifact from a temple in Thailand. Thai government officials offer to drop the charges if he investigates a large and mysterious object which has been found on Infant Island. He is joined by his ex-wife, Masaku Tezuka, and Kenji Ando, an employee from the Marutomo Company. On the island, they discover a cave with a depiction of two giant insects fighting, and further exploration leads them to Mothra's egg along with the Cosmos, tiny humanoids who explain the ancient battle between Mothra and Batra. Batra, like Mothra, has two forms, a larval and an adult form. His adult form has a black body with huge wings featuring red, black, and yellow patterns. Batra was created by Earth itself 12,000 years ago to destroy a climate control device made by an ancient civilization. He ended up wiping out the entire civilization and almost all of humanity, but Mothra eventually defeated him and sealed him away in the Arctic Ocean. In his larval form, Batra is a fierce fighter, using a massive yellow horn as a battering ram and firing orange electrical blasts called prism beams from his horn. In his adult form, he gains an even more powerful purple beam, and he can fly at Mach 3 while releasing energy blasts from his feet to subdue enemies in close combat. After Batra was defeated 12,000 years ago, Mothra made Infant Island her home, with the Cosmos being the last survivors of the old civilization. In the Heisei Timeline, Mothra can shoot twin orange beams from her antenna and can also generate electricity from her wings. The Marutomo Company dispatches a freighter to Infant Island to collect the egg, supposedly for its protection. During the journey, Godzilla rises from the sea and heads towards the freshly hatched Mothra larva. Soon after, Batra, in its own larval state, shows up to join the conflict, giving Mothra a chance to flee. The battle between Batra and Godzilla ends up underwater and in a crevice in the sea plate. As this goes on, Ando's true intentions are revealed when he kidnaps the Cosmos to exploit them for Marutomo's gain. Mothra tries to rescue the Cosmos, but the Japanese military attacks her. She retreats and begins forming a cocoon in Tokyo while Godzilla rises from Mount Fuji, and at the same time, Batra escapes from the Earth's crust and makes its way towards Japan. Mothra and Batra eventually transform into their full forms and face off. Their fight is interrupted by Godzilla, and the two team up to fight and defeat Godzilla, though Batra is mortally wounded when Godzilla bites its neck. Mothra, weakened, drops both Godzilla and Batra into the ocean, sealing Godzilla beneath the waves with a mystical glyph. The next day, the Cosmos explain that Batra had been waiting to destroy a massive asteroid which would hit the Earth in the year 1999. Mothra previously promised to stop it if Batra died, and with that, Mothra and the Cosmos leave Earth to fulfill their promise. Back in 1992, after Godzilla's battle with King Ghidorah, the United Nations set up the United Nations Godzilla Countermeasures Center, or the UNGCC, to deal with the giant monster. Their military branch, G-Force, used parts from the defeated Mecha King Ghidorah to create two new weapons, the Garuda gunship and a Godzilla-inspired mecha called Mechagodzilla. Since this Mechagodzilla is radically similar to the original, I won't give him a monster profile here. 2 years later, a Japanese team of scientists find a huge egg in a nest on Otanoa Island, which sends out a telepathic signal that attracts both Godzilla and Rodan. Rodan is a pteranodon whose egg survived the dinosaur extinction and hatched on Otanoa Island in the Bering Sea. After being exposed to nuclear waste dumped by the Russians, he mutated and grew to a massive size. He stands about 20 meters taller than his Showa version, and his wings are larger in proportion to his body and have visible blood vessels. Godzilla appears to kill Rodan during their fight, while the scientists escape with the egg. They bring it to Kyoto, where it imprints with a female scientist, since the creature inside believes the scientist to be its mother. When the egg hatches, they discover it's baby Godzilla, which begins showing affection to its surrogate mother. Baby Godzilla is much gentler and friendlier towards humans than Godzilla. He stands at around human height with a slightly hunched posture, bluish skin, a gray belly, and small gray dorsal fins on his back. One of the scientists who found him suggested that the egg may have been laid in the pteranodon nest, with the idea that the pteranodons would raise him like their own, though this theory was never confirmed or explored further. While baby Godzilla comes from the same species as Godzilla, they're not directly related. Godzilla then arrives, drawn by the baby's psychic call, and the JSDF sends Mechagodzilla to stop him. The robot is eventually disabled by Godzilla's energy pulse, and Godzilla continues searching for baby Godzilla. However, the scientists, having discovered the sidekick connection between the two monsters, are able to isolate and hide baby Godzilla, and Godzilla is unable to locate him. Godzilla goes on a rampage before departing into the ocean. The team discovers baby Godzilla's second brain and decides to use baby Godzilla to lure Godzilla into another battle with Mechagodzilla. They then upgrade Mechagodzilla with a special weapon to target Godzilla's second brain. Things go sideways, though, when Rodan, still alive and now mutated into Fire Rodan, intercepts the transport carrying baby Godzilla, since Rodan, having watched over the egg previously, views baby Godzilla as something of a brother. Mechagodzilla and Garuda are sent after Rodan and mortally wound it. Godzilla shows up shortly after, and following an intense battle, Mechagodzilla combines with Garuda to form Super Mechagodzilla, and it is able to incapacitate Godzilla. Rodan is revived by baby Godzilla's call and flies towards baby Godzilla, but is shot down by Super Mechagodzilla. Rodan falls atop Godzilla, and the radiation from the monster causes Godzilla to heal and become overcharged with power. Now stronger than ever, Godzilla destroys Super Mechagodzilla with a super-powered atomic blast. He finds baby Godzilla, who's initially scared, but is eventually convinced to go with Godzilla, and they leave together, heading back into the ocean. 1 year later, there's an emergence of a new monster in space, Space Godzilla, which heads directly to Earth. The human characters in this story speculate that Godzilla's cells somehow ended up in space and got sucked into a black hole and came out of a white hole, causing the cells to rapidly evolve by merging with crystalline organisms and absorbing energy from exploding stars. It's unclear exactly how the cells got to the black hole, but there are two theories provided. One is that Godzilla's cells from Biollante drifted into space after she battled Godzilla and ended up in the black hole. The other is that Mothra unknowingly carried the cells into space while heading towards the meteor, which was heading towards Earth. Space Godzilla is much bulkier than Godzilla and stands 20 meters taller. He has two huge spiked crystals growing from his shoulders, and his tail is much longer. His back also has large white crystal dorsal fins. Because of his heavy build, Space Godzilla struggles to walk and is incapable of running, but he makes up for this with the ability to fly and levitate. Space Godzilla can create a crystal shield called the Photon Reactive Shield to block or reflect energy beams. He also has a powerful energy attack called the Corona Beam. He seems to control the beam's direction with telekinesis, allowing him to bypass enemy defenses with it. Besides being strong, Space Godzilla is also one of, if not Godzilla's most intelligent enemy. While flying, he can reach speeds of Mach 3 on Earth and almost the speed of light in space. Despite these many advantages, Space Godzilla struggles in close combat due to his bulky build and short arms. Meanwhile, the United Nations Godzilla team has devised multiple plans to deal with Godzilla, one of which includes using a telepathy device to control Godzilla with Psychic Miki's abilities. The twin priestesses from Mothra, the Cosmos, then warn Miki about Space Godzilla's impending arrival. In response to this, Mogura, a new robot created alongside Mechagodzilla, is sent into space to fight Space Godzilla. Mogura is an anti-Godzilla robot built by G-Force with help from Russia, in contrast and alongside Mechagodzilla, which was made with the United States. Its name is an acronym, meaning Mobile Operations Godzilla Universal Expert Robot Aerotype. Mogura's construction was delayed because it was more complex than Mechagodzilla, but it was finished in 1995 using parts from the destroyed Mechagodzilla. Mogura has a bipedal mole-like design with square feet, a drill on its nose, cone-shaped hands, and a short tail. It has a plasma laser cannon on its chest, tank treads on its feet, and a plasma laser cannon in each eye, which fires a powerful yellow beam that's 3 times stronger than Mechagodzilla's lasers. The crusher drill on its face also gives it solid close-range attack power. Mogura fails to stop Space Godzilla's approach and is damaged in the conflict. Space Godzilla arrives and attacks Boss Island, and after a confrontation with Godzilla, traps little Godzilla, who is simply baby Godzilla but more grown up, in a crystal prison, and then heads to Japan with Godzilla in pursuit. The Yakuza kidnap Miki to use her psychic abilities to control Godzilla, but she's ultimately rescued. Space Godzilla then lands in Fukoku. The JSDF realizes Space Godzilla is using Fukoku Tower to suck energy from the Earth's core, which is slowly killing the planet. Godzilla then begins battling Space Godzilla, and as the two battle, Mogura splits into two mechs, the Star Falcon, a flying battleship, and the Land Mogura, a tank with a drill. They damage Space Godzilla's crystal fortress, and Godzilla knocks over Fukoku Tower to cut off its energy source. Mogura reforms and blasts away Space Godzilla's crystal armor, weakening him. Space Godzilla severely damages Mogura, but Godzilla finishes the job with a supercharged atomic beam, incinerating Space Godzilla. After Miki uses her psychic abilities to remove the mind control device from Godzilla, he heads back to Boss Island, where little Godzilla is released from his crystal prison. 1 year later, Miki goes to Boss Island to check on Godzilla and his son, only to find the island destroyed and both monsters missing. Godzilla shows up in Hong Kong, now covered in lava-like rashes, and begins destroying the city with a supercharged atomic beam. The Japanese government hires college student Kenkichi Yamane, the grandson of the original Godzilla film's Dr. Yamane, to discover what's wrong with Godzilla. He uncovers that Godzilla's nuclear heart is overheating due to energy from a volcanic uranium deposit on Boss Island, and if his heart gets too hot, Godzilla could explode and destroy the planet. The JSDF tries to stop the meltdown with the Super X-3, a high-tech aircraft equipped with low-temperature lasers, but while they temporarily knock Godzilla out, they provide only a brief respite from Godzilla's meltdown. Meanwhile, mutated creatures called Destroya, made from crustaceans affected by the original Godzilla's oxygen destroyer, emerge and begin causing chaos. Destroya is a monstrous creature born from the oxygen destroyer, the chemical weapon that killed the original Godzilla in 1954. The weapon unleashed the dormant remnants of ancient crustaceans in Tokyo Bay, and over time these creatures mutated and evolved into Destroya. Like Hedorah, he's made up of trillions of microscopic organisms, giving him incredible regenerative powers and adaptability. Destroya's name is a direct reference to the destroyer weapon that created him, and he's known as one of Godzilla's most ruthless and intelligent enemies, displaying awareness of, and pleasure in, the destruction and death which he causes. His primary weapon is the ability to shoot micro-oxygen from his mouth, which can dissolve enemies. He is also capable of absorbing the DNA of other creatures, using it to evolve. In his perfect form, he has a horn that generates a powerful energy blade, the Variable Slicer, capable of cutting through Godzilla's flesh. Despite these and many other advantages in combat, Destroya is weak to extreme temperatures, both hot and cold, since it can destroy the micro-oxygen in his body. Miki finds Godzilla Jr., an even more grown-up version of Baby Godzilla, and telepathically lures him to Tokyo in hopes that Godzilla will follow and die fighting Destroya. Jr. battles Destroya, yet, despite the arrival of Godzilla to assist in the battle, Jr. is killed by Destroya. Godzilla, devastated by Jr.'s death, becomes even more unstable, causing his temperature to rise dangerously. In a final confrontation, Godzilla's new heat ray severely wounds Destroya, and the creature retreats. The JSDF then blasts Destroya with cold weapons, and the creature perishes. With Destroya gone, Godzilla enters full meltdown. The JSDF prevents the Earth from being destroyed by using their cold weapons to minimize the damage, but Godzilla dies slowly and painfully, and the radiation from his meltdown causes Tokyo to become uninhabitable. This uninhabitable state only lasts for a brief moment, however, because Godzilla Jr.'s deceased body absorbs the radiation, and as a result, Godzilla Jr. is resurrected as the new king of the monsters. Toho initially planned for Godzilla vs. Destroya to be the final Japanese Godzilla film until 2005, with TriStar Pictures producing a trilogy of American Godzilla movies in the interim. However, the negative reception of TriStar's Godzilla released in 1998 led Toho to recognize a renewed demand for the Japanese Godzilla. In response, they brought the series back just 1 year later with Godzilla 2000 Millennium, which marked the start of the Millennium era of Godzilla films. The Millennium era refers to the Godzilla films produced between 1999 and 2004. These films are characterized by their having no shared continuity, with the exception of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Godzilla Tokyo SOS, with SOS being a direct sequel to Against Mechagodzilla. After Godzilla Final Wars in 2004, Toho decided to pause the series for another decade to generate renewed interest. While an American Godzilla film was produced by Legendary Pictures in 2014, Toho would not release another Godzilla movie until Shin Godzilla in 2016. Godzilla 2000 Millennium, therefore, serves as a reboot, disregarding all the films after the original 1954 Godzilla. Both the book Godzilla 2000 Millennium Super Complete Works and the website Godzilla.jp confirm that the Godzilla featured in this film is the second incarnation in its continuity, following the death of the original Godzilla that attacked Tokyo in 1954. In the year 2000, Godzilla is monitored by the Godzilla Prediction Network, while a group of scientists known as the Crisis Control Intelligence, the CCI, uncovers a mysterious UFO in the Japan Trench. When they try to raise it out for study, the UFO powers up and takes off. Meanwhile, Godzilla attacks a Japanese village and battles Japan's self-defense forces. The movie doesn't explain where this version of Godzilla came from, only that it's been terrorizing Japan for decades, predating the start of the film. Unlike the monster's usual charcoal gray design, this Godzilla has dark green skin and much larger, jagged dorsal fins with a distinctly purple color. This Godzilla keeps the destructive, anti-hero personality for the monster, which was a hallmark of the Heisei era. The UFO appears and tries to collect genetic information from Godzilla, battling the monster and causing Godzilla to retreat underwater to recover from the conflict. Yuji Shinoda, leader of the Godzilla Prediction Network, figures out that Godzilla's ability to regenerate is tied to a substance called Organizer G1. The UFO is after the substance, and after escaping military containment, it heads to Tokyo to gather more data about Godzilla. The UFO starts altering the atmosphere and broadcasts an invasion plan, revealing its alien creators want Godzilla's regenerative DNA to heal and reshape their bodies. Godzilla arrives to fight the UFO again, but the aliens absorb his DNA, causing them to mutate into a creature called Millennium. The Millennians were a super advanced alien species that originally came to Earth in their spaceship to set up their own empire. However, their ship crashed into the ocean by accident, and, without sunlight, it lost power. To survive, the Millennians merged into a single form known as Millennium. Millennium is unable to control Godzilla's genetic information, and as a result, the Millennium transforms into a corrupted form, a monster called Orga. Orga is a corrupted symbiosis of the Millenniums and Godzilla's genetic material. He has distinctively massive, clawed hands that he uses to batter his enemies. He also uses a beam ability known as the Destructive Motion Attack, where he shoots a strong yellow energy blast from his shoulder. Thanks to having Godzilla's Organizer G1, Orga has regenerative abilities that rival even those of Godzilla. He can also control the Millennium UFO with telepathy. Orga's primary motivation is centered on fully absorbing Godzilla's DNA to become a perfect clone of the creature. Godzilla battles Orga, and after a brutal fight, Godzilla uses his atomic breath to severely wound Orga, but the creature survives the blast and attempts to swallow Godzilla. Godzilla then uses a nuclear pulse to vaporize and defeat Orga. Following the battle, the survivors reflect on the nature of Godzilla as the monster continues to destroy Tokyo. Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is often thought to be a direct sequel to Godzilla 2000 Millennium, since the Godzilla design in the film closely resembles that of the previous movie. However, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus exists in a separate continuity and is in no way connected to Godzilla 2000. In this continuity, Godzilla was not killed by the Oxygen Destroyer and reappeared in Japan in 1966, affecting the world dramatically with his continued presence. The only previous film in continuity with Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is the original 1954 Godzilla film. The prologue of the film acknowledges the events of the original 1954 Godzilla. However, in a slight departure from the original film's ending, the film explains that the Oxygen Destroyer was never used against Godzilla. Following the destruction of Tokyo, Japan's capital was moved to Osaka. Godzilla then attacks a nuclear power plant in 1966, leading to the creation of the G-Graspers, a task force aimed at fighting Godzilla. By 1996, Japan began using clean plasma energy. However, Godzilla still attacked the new plasma reactors, leading to the energy source being banned in Japan. Fast forward to 2001. An experimental satellite weapon called the Dimension Tide, which shoots miniature black holes, accidentally opens a wormhole, bringing a prehistoric dragonfly into the present. The dragonfly lays an egg, which a boy named Jun Hayasaka finds and tosses into the sewer when it starts to leak a strange fluid. The egg hatches into a meganulon larva, which grows rapidly and begins attacking people, eventually forming into Meganula. Shortly after, Godzilla appears once again, searching for nuclear energy. This Godzilla's personality is similar to the one in Godzilla 2000 Millennium, a force of nature with no concern for humanity. This version of Godzilla has a smaller mouth, a flatter face, and a shorter neck compared to the one in Godzilla 2000. While battling the G-Graspers, the Meganula are drawn to Godzilla's energy. The Dimension Tide is launched in the midst of this battle in an attempt to kill Godzilla, but it fails. The surviving Meganula manage to siphon energy from Godzilla and inject it into a massive cocoon, which hatches into Megaguirus, the queen of the Meganula. Megaguirus has bumpy purple skin and green spikes all over her body. She has 8 limbs in total, 2 forelimbs with huge pincers, and 6 smaller legs, along with large wings and a long tail with a stinger. Megaguirus is all about domination. She's vicious and greedy. She can fly at Mach 4, and her flight creates high-frequency waves that distort electronics and create a painfully loud sound for humans. While she's faster than Godzilla, Megaguirus is far more fragile than the King of the Monsters, giving him a distinct advantage in combat. After a fight with Godzilla, Megaguirus is killed when Godzilla crushes its stinger and finishes the monster with his atomic breath. It's meanwhile discovered that Godzilla is being drawn to a secret plasma energy project at the Science Institute, which exists in violation of the nationwide ban on plasma energy. The G-Graspers continue their mission to kill Godzilla, and after a series of complications, they are able to use the Dimension Tide to send Godzilla into a black hole. In a post-credit scene, Godzilla's roar is heard as an earthquake strikes Tokyo, hinting at his return. In this timeline, the Godzilla depicted is the same one killed in 1954, but he returns as a supernatural entity, possessed by the souls the Japanese were responsible for ending in the Pacific theater of World War II. Seeking revenge against Japan for ignoring its past, Godzilla rises from the sea to punish the nation. GMK is considered a fan favorite, a reputation it has achieved for its standout musical score, story, special effects, characters, and its much darker tone. Another fun note, at the start of the film, Admiral Tachibana mentions a large reptilian monster attacking New York City. One soldier asks if the monster was Godzilla, and another jokingly replies that while Americans think so, their guys have their doubts. This is a reference to the 1998 American Godzilla film, and some interpret it as suggesting the 1998 Godzilla film exists in the GMK continuity, something I personally subscribe to since it otherwise wouldn't make sense for such a reference to exist within this continuity. In 2002, Admiral Taizo Tachibana briefs a group of JSDF soldiers about the terrifying threat that is Godzilla. He recounts the 1954 attack on Tokyo and the monster's subsequent defeat. However, Tachibana warns the troops to remain vigilant after a similar monster attacked New York, sparking a rise in global monster sightings. Soon after, an American nuclear submarine disappears off the coast of Guam, and the JSDF sends the submersible Satsuma to investigate. The Satsuma finds the wreckage of the sub, with massive claw marks on its hull, and is then struck by a violent wave, causing a sister craft to explode. In the chaos, the Satsuma's operator spots glowing dorsal fins. Meanwhile, Yuri Tachibana, the Admiral's daughter, is making a fake documentary about a mythical monster near Mount Miyoko. She convinces the local mayor to allow filming at the location after a small earthquake. Later, she vents her frustrations over the barriers she faces as a woman in journalism to her friend Mitsuaki Takeda. Takeda then shares a legend about 3 ancient guardian monsters that once protected Japan. Takeda helps Yuri back to her apartment after she's had too much to drink, where she is embarrassingly greeted by her father, Admiral Tachibana. Elsewhere, at Lake Akita, a group of teens rob a store, damage a shrine, and then set up camp, and they inadvertently trigger the appearance of a massive larva, which later forms a cocoon, trapping the teens inside. Yuri and Takeda meet an old man in police custody who predicts Godzilla's return and warns that only the guardian monsters can stop him. As Godzilla surfaces during a typhoon in the Bonin Islands, the JSDF scrambles to track him. Yuri and Takeda then tell Tachibana about the guardian monsters, but he dismisses their story. Meanwhile, a businessman in the forest finds a 3-headed dragon frozen in ice. Soon after, an earthquake strikes, and the monster from Mount Miyoko, Baragon, awakens and begins to roam Japan. Baragon is a reptilian creature with reddish-brown skin, a large horn on his forehead, and several spikes curving backward from his head. His large floppy ears also add to his distinctive appearance. The GMK Baragon has a fiercer, more predatory design compared to his 1965 and 1968 versions. In this film, he is one of Japan's 3 guardian monsters. In battle, Baragon prefers to engage in close combat, using his claws and teeth as his main weapons. He is also highly skilled at burrowing, able to vanish underground in an instant, and his burrowing movements can trigger small earthquakes. Following Baragon's appearance, Godzilla emerges soon afterwards. This version of Godzilla is an entity made up of the souls of people who died as a result of Japan's military actions during World War II. These souls have gathered inside Godzilla's body, turning it into a vengeful creature that rises from the sea to destroy modern Japan. Unlike other Godzillas, this one intentionally targets civilians and aims to wipe out the entire nation of Japan as punishment for forgetting the horrors of the Great War. Baragon fights Godzilla but is eventually defeated, leaving Godzilla to continue his destructive path towards Tokyo. Meanwhile, the JSDF's airstrikes fail to stop Godzilla, but Mothra and Ghidorah, 2 other guardian monsters, emerge to confront Godzilla. The GMK Mothra's adult form is closer to a mix between a moth and a hornet. Its purple eyes, feathery antennae, and super long, sharp-legged claws set it apart from its previous iterations. Mothra also has a curved thorax that can shoot out stingers. It's also worth noting that Mothra and the other guardian monsters care less about protecting humans and are concerned with defending the natural land of Japan itself. As for Ghidorah, this version of the dragon is exceptionally unique since it's the first and only time he's portrayed as a protagonist. Also, this version of the monster has 2 forms, its regular Ghidorah form and the more powerful King Ghidorah form, which we'll see in a bit. The 3 monsters engage in an epic battle in Yokohama, but Godzilla overpowers them both, managing to kill Mothra and wound Ghidorah. Mothra's energy revives Ghidorah, transforming him into King Ghidorah, and the battle intensifies. As Godzilla and King Ghidorah clash, the JSDF attempt to stop them, but their missiles and attacks are ineffective. Godzilla then absorbs the energy of Ghidorah's gravity beams and destroys Ghidorah with a spiral atomic beam. The spirits of all 3 guardian monsters appear in the sky and merge with Godzilla, causing him to sink into the ocean. Admiral Tachibana, aboard the Satsuna, is swallowed by Godzilla, but Tachibana manages to launch a missile into the inside of Godzilla's chest, causing Godzilla's atomic breath to backfire. As Tachibana's submersible escapes, Godzilla's atomic breath finally causes him to overload and explode underwater. As the Satsuma resurfaces, Tachibana exits the sub and shares a moment with his daughter. Meanwhile, on the ocean floor, Godzilla's heart mysteriously begins to beat again. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla is yet another reboot in the Godzilla franchise, reintroducing the iconic enemy, Mechagodzilla, for the Millennium series. The continuity of what is referred to as the Kiryu series also extends beyond the main Godzilla timeline. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla references events from classic Toho kaiju films such as Mothra and The War of the Gargantuas, among others. I will show an image of all the films which are referenced throughout the Kiryu series on the screen so that you can get an idea of the larger Kiryu continuity of films. In 1999, a typhoon hits Tateyama, and a second Godzilla emerges from the sea, attacking Japan. The Kiryu series Godzilla is part of the same species as the original Godzilla from 1954. This version doesn't have much of a personality, appearing to act exclusively on instinct. His skin is once again a classic dark gray, with smaller, bone-white dorsal fins, and his eyes are large, bird-like, and yellow. Interestingly, this version of Godzilla has instances of being less durable compared to other Godzillas, along with having a reduced healing ability. The anti-Megalosaurus force tries to stop Godzilla using tanks and weapons, such as the Type 90 Macer cannons, but they fail miserably. During the battle, Akane Yashiro, a Macer operator, accidentally causes the deaths of her commanding officers when she crashes into their vehicle and Godzilla crushes it. She is both traumatized by the events and demoted to a desk job. Fast forward to 2003, and the AMF is working on a new weapon to combat Godzilla: Kiryu. Kiryu, or as some Godzilla media refers to it, Mechagodzilla 3, is a bio-robot built around the skeleton of the original Godzilla from 1954. It's equipped with a Type 99 double macer cannon in its mouth, dual wrist-mounted Type O railguns, and other artillery weapons. Its most dangerous weapon is the Type 3 Absolute Zero cannon hidden in its chest, which can fire a beam that instantaneously freezes anything to absolute zero. Akane is selected to be the primary pilot of Kiryu, even though she's still haunted by her past and has a strained relationship with some of her teammates and fellow pilots. The team soon learns that the original Godzilla's consciousness is somehow still alive in the skeleton within Kiryu. When Godzilla attacks again, Kiryu is deployed to fight him. However, Kiryu goes berserk due to the original Godzilla's consciousness taking control, leading to massive destruction. After some technical fixes, Kiryu is reactivated, and Kiryu and Godzilla engage in a brutal battle. Just when it looks like Godzilla is about to win, Akane uses Kiryu's powerful Absolute Zero cannon to freeze Godzilla and severely injure him. Godzilla retreats into the ocean, while Kiryu, though severely damaged, stands victorious. After the battle, Akane reflects on her journey. With support from Sarah, the daughter of Kiryu's lead scientist, and her teammates, Akane learns to value her own life and gains a renewed sense of purpose. In 2004, a year after Godzilla battled Kiryu, Mothra's Shobijin visit scientist Shinichi Chuho, who helped rescue Mothra's relatives in 1961. They warned him that using the bones of the first Godzilla to create Kiryu was a mistake, and demand the bones be returned to the ocean to avoid war between Mothra and humanity. If the bones are returned, Mothra promises to protect Japan from the current Godzilla. Meanwhile, Kiryu is being repaired, and the original Kiryu squad members are sent to the United States for more training. Soon, a giant turtle carcass washes up, revealed to be a monster killed by Godzilla. With Kiryu nearly ready for deployment, Chuho urges Prime Minister Igarashi to cancel the project due to the Shobishin's warning. But Igarashi refuses, insisting that Kiryu is Japan's only defense against Godzilla. Godzilla soon appears in Tokyo Bay, breaking through the city's defenses and heading towards Kiryu's hangar. Mothra then arrives to fight Godzilla. This Mothra mostly resembles the original Mothra from 1961 with some light alterations. Mothra is a benevolent creature who seeks to keep Earth's natural order intact. She attempts to live in peace with humans, although is upset when she finds out that the remains of the original Godzilla were used to build the anti-Godzilla weapon Kiryu. This Mothra is a descendant of the original from 1961. Mothra is eventually overpowered and Kiryu is launched, but Godzilla disables Kiryu with his atomic breath. Meanwhile, two Mothra larvae hatch and arrive to help. Mothra then sacrifices herself to protect them. Kiryu and Godzilla battle near the National Diet building, and Kiryu severely injures Godzilla. The Mothra larva immobilize Godzilla with silk, but as Kiryu is ordered to finish him off, the soul of the first Godzilla awakens and takes control of Kiryu. Instead of killing Godzilla, Kiryu carries him into the sea and sinks with him into the Japan Trench. The Shobijin are content that the first Godzilla's spirit is at peace, while Igarashi calls the outcome a hollow victory. Back at an AMF lab, it is shown that DNA samples from various kaiju, including the original Godzilla, are stored in cryogenic tanks. Godzilla Final Wars served as the final Godzilla film for a decade following its release, marking the 50th anniversary of the franchise. It features the most kaiju of any Godzilla film to date. Godzilla Final Wars is also the last feature-length Godzilla film to use suitmation, with subsequent films relying on CGI and motion capture. The opening of Godzilla Final Wars includes stock footage from various Toho kaiju films, including many Godzilla movies. However, no specific events from these films are referenced except for a Godzilla appearance in 1954, implying that only one Godzilla exists in this continuity. Despite this information being in the film, Godzilla Final Wars was the first Japanese Godzilla film where the original 1954 movie is not officially canon. This film features a vast array of monsters we've discussed before, so to save time we will only be going over entirely new monsters in this film's breakdown. After years of nuclear testing, wars, and reckless science, giant monsters began appearing around the world. To deal with this, the nations of the world created the Earth Defense Force to fight the creatures and bring peace back to the world. Alongside the monsters, mutants with superhuman abilities were discovered, and the EDF formed a special unit called the M Organization to harness these individuals' unique skills to help in the battle. Eventually, the monsters were mostly defeated. But then, in 1954, Godzilla appeared, far more powerful than any monster the EDF had faced before. This Godzilla falls into the anti-hero tradition of the character, with the film's introduction describing Godzilla as humanity's greatest threat. This version of Godzilla blends features from several past designs. He has the classic dark gray skin with bone-white dorsal fins, but with a sleeker, slimmer build, and his face has a sharp reptilian look to it, with small eyes containing a color mixture of red, orange, and yellow. After a fierce battle, Godzilla was buried by an avalanche of ice and rock, freezing him in place. The facility Area G was then built around his icy prison. Decades later, the world enjoys a time of peace, with occasional monster attacks easily handled by the EDF. During this period, a mysterious mummified monster, Gigan, was found off the coast of Hokkaido. The Shobijin twins revealed that Gigan was once sent by aliens to destroy life on Earth, but was defeated by Mothra. They then give a mutant named Shinichi Ozaki a sword, informing him of his consequential destiny. Monsters then start attacking cities worldwide. Rodan in New York, Zilla in Sydney, Anguirus in Shanghai, King Caesar in Okinawa, Kamakuras in Paris, Kumanga in Phoenix, and Ebura in Tokai. The Earth Defense Force scrambles to stop the chaos. I suppose now we finally have to talk about Zilla. Zilla is a giant mutant iguana kaiju from the 1998 Godzilla movie. It's fast, agile, and can jump great distances to take down its foes. Its greatest strength, however, is its ability to rapidly reproduce asexually using sheer numbers to overwhelm enemies. During this crisis, an alien race called the Zillions show up, capturing the monsters and offering a peaceful alliance with Earth. United Nations Secretary General Neyataro Daigo, originally believed to be dead after an attack on his plane by Rodan, is now working with the Zillions to form a Space Nations alliance. However, blood from an assassination attempt on Daigo reveals him to be an imposter, and the Zillions' asteroid turns out to be a hologram. Ozaki suspects the Zillions are planning to take over Earth. Ozaki's trust lies with Captain Gordon, who uncovers that many of the EDF leaders are Zillion imposters. Gordon kills 2 of them and exposes Daigo on live TV. The Zillion's real plan is then revealed when the second-in-command, the Controller, takes control of the mutants and releases the monsters to attack cities again. The Controller also deploys small fighter ships to decimate human civilization. Meanwhile, Ozaki fights and subdues his fellow mutant Kazama, and the EDF prepares a desperate plan to release Godzilla from his icy tomb in Antarctica. The EDF succeeds, and with Godzilla unleashed, he defeats the monster Gigan and goes on a rampage, taking down various creatures across the world, eventually targeting the Zillion mothership. The Gotengo crew attempts to destroy the mothership, but they're thwarted by Zillion fighter ships. Kazama sacrifices himself to disable the mothership's shields, allowing the Gotengo to penetrate into the mothership. However, this final push fails, and as the surviving crew is captured and brought to the Zillion's leader, the Controller reveals the Zillion's true goal: to use humanity as cattle for their survival, by harvesting human mitochondria. The Controller reveals he and Ozaki are Kaisers, a rare and powerful breed of mutant. He takes control of Ozaki to turn him against the group, leading to a fight, but the Shobijin bless Ozaki, breaking the Controller's hold on him. Ozaki then taps into his full power and defeats the Controller, who triggers the mothership's self-destruct. The group escapes, making it back to the Gotengo just before the mothership blows up. The final battle sees Godzilla fighting Monster X, who transforms into Kaiser Ghidorah. Monster X is a fierce bipedal beast with a white bone-like exoskeleton and black skin. He's got red eyes, a skeletal face, and long spikes on his head. His shoulders have small half skulls, and he's got a long, forked tail. Kaiser Ghidorah, on the other hand, is a 4-legged creature with golden skin, though his wings are smaller than what we would come to expect from a monster with the Ghidorah name. He doesn't have the usual scales either, and instead has smooth golden skin with teal streaks and spikes. His middle neck is longer than the others, and each head has a set of horns and spikes. Monster X can blast yellow electrical beams from his eyes called the Destroyed Thunder Gravity Beam, while Kaiser Ghidorah takes it a step further with an even stronger version called the Destroyed Kaiser Anti-Gravity Beam. After a brutal fight, Godzilla, empowered by Ozaki's energy, defeats Kaiser Ghidorah, sending him into space with a powerful atomic blast. However, Godzilla continues his rampage, attacking the Gotengo. Just as he's about to destroy the survivors, his son Manila intervenes, calming Godzilla and convincing him to leave. The two walk off into the ruined world as Godzilla gives one final roar. After the release of Godzilla Final Wars, Toho decided to retire the Godzilla series, a move that was partly due to the film's disappointing box office performance. However, Yoshimitsu Banno, director of Godzilla vs. Hedorah, received permission to produce an IMAX short film called Godzilla 3D. His search for funding created a cascade of events which ultimately led to Legendary Pictures securing the rights to produce a new film titled Godzilla in 2014. This film launched the Monsterverse, while Toho would later return to the franchise with Shin Godzilla in 2016, beginning the Daiwa era of Godzilla films. Shin Godzilla is a complete reboot of the franchise, presenting Godzilla as it attacks Japan for the first time in the modern era. The film was a massive success both critically and financially in Japan, drawing the highest attendance for the series since 1966 and winning an unprecedented number of awards for a kaiju film, including Picture of the Year at the 40th Japan Academy Prize. In this iteration, Godzilla's origins are substantially different from previous iterations. Unlike previous portrayals where he was a reptile mutated by nuclear testing, Shin Godzilla presents him as an unspecified type of prehistoric sea creature mutated by consuming nuclear waste on the ocean floor, significantly changing the subtext and messaging of the film. This is one of two films I will state that I highly recommend watching instead of listening to this summary if you haven't seen it, as it is a masterpiece and one of the two best Godzilla films in my humble opinion. In 2016, the Japan Coast Guard investigates an abandoned yacht in Tokyo Bay, but things take a turn for the worse when a giant creature, later named Godzilla, emerges from the ocean. About 60 years before the events of the film, nuclear waste was dumped on the ocean floor and, over time, Godzilla adapted to survive in that toxic environment. As it fed on the radioactive material, it grew larger and eventually evolved into a creature that could crawl onto land. Shin Godzilla is unique in its design, with multiple forms that he evolves into throughout the film. In its first form, Godzilla is mostly hidden. Only its tail and part of its back are seen. The tail is reddish, and its back is covered in tan dorsal fins. In its second form, Godzilla is a yellow-green or light brown color, and has an eel and shark-like head. In its third form, Godzilla stands upright. It has white dorsal fins and blood-red markings on its back from the heat it generates. In its fourth form, Godzilla resembles the classic 1954 Godzilla with a rounded head and small eyes, black scarred skin, and large black dorsal fins, although with red scars. It has large crooked teeth and a mouth that splits open when it uses its atomic breath. This Godzilla is actually fairly passive and mostly unaware of humanity, causing destruction because of his clumsy and immature forms, and then due to his immense size, although he is shown to fight back in self-defense. Shin Godzilla keeps his classic atomic breath, although it starts off as a cloud of smoke, then becomes a fire that burns through city blocks. Only later does it narrow into a purple atomic breath beam. He can also shoot powerful purple beams from between his dorsal fins, with each beam equivalent to an atomic breath beam. His tail has a spare head on it that can fire its own beam of atomic energy, and it can be used at the same time as his regular atomic breath, allowing him to hit multiple targets. Like all Godzillas, Shin Godzilla is tough and resistant to most conventional weapons. Godzilla causes chaos and destruction as it moves inland through Tokyo. Military and government forces scramble to contain it, but they're quickly overpowered by Godzilla's devastating force. A government task force led by Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Rondo Yaguchi learns that Godzilla is powered by nuclear fission and is constantly evolving. It's revealed that a disgraced zoology professor, Goro Maki, predicted Godzilla's appearance years earlier, though his warnings were ignored. Maki's yacht, found abandoned, contained crucial research notes that Yaguchi's team decoded, and then developed a plan to freeze Godzilla with a special coagulating agent. As Godzilla leaves a trail of destruction, and despite the threat of nuclear weapons from the UN if Japan fails to stop Godzilla, Yaguchi's team pulls off a risky deep freeze operation just hours before a planned thermonuclear strike. Following an unknown amount of time, smaller, humanoid creatures begin to emerge from Godzilla's tail. Coinciding with the production of Shin Godzilla, in August of 2016, Toho announced the development of an animated Godzilla film set for release in 2017. By March of 2017, it was revealed that the film would be the first in a new trilogy. Set in the late 20th century, the story follows giant monsters attacking Earth, with humanity nearly driven to extinction by one creature in particular, Godzilla. Two alien races, the religious Exif and the technologically advanced Bilyusolido, arrive on Earth, offering their help to fight Godzilla. However, after the Bilyusolido's plan to use Mechagodzilla fails before it can be activated, both aliens and humans are forced to flee Earth. They emigrate to the exoplanet Tau Ceti aboard the spaceship Eratrum, while a second interstellar ship, Oratio, is sent to Kepler 452b, but mysteriously disappears. 20 years later, Eratrum is now 11.9 light-years from Earth, housing the remaining humans along with Exif and Bilyusolido refugees. Personally, I find the story and lore of these movies very difficult to follow, so if you get a little bit lost, just know you're not alone. At the start of the 21st century, massive monsters called kaiju ravage Earth. Amid the chaos, two alien races arrive: the Exif, who continuously attempt to convert humans to their religion, and the Bilyusolido, who offer to save Earth from Godzilla in exchange for asylum. By 2046, the Bilyusolido are nearly done building Mechagodzilla, but Godzilla destroys the facility before it can be used, leading humanity to abandon Earth in two ships, the Oratio and the Eratrum, in a search for a new home. Haruo Sakaki, a young survivor, witnesses Godzilla kill his parents during the evacuation and vows to avenge them. 22 years later, the Eratrum reaches Tau Ceti E, but it's uninhabitable and resources are running out. Haruo, now a captain, distrusts the Central Committee's plan to send elderly passengers to the planet's surface, believing it to be a conspiracy to eliminate the ship's elderly population. He goes rogue, but after a tense standoff, he learns the elderly volunteered. They die immediately upon entering the planet's atmosphere. Haruo then anonymously publishes a plan to defeat Godzilla, which gains attention across the ship. When the Central Committee agrees to return to Earth, Haruo is released from prison to pitch his plan to defeat Godzilla. The ship reaches Earth, however the hyperjump caused a time jump of nearly 20,000 years. After landing on Earth, they realize Godzilla's presence has completely changed Earth's ecosystem. After some of their ships are attacked by flying creatures, the remaining troops mobilize but encounter Godzilla shortly afterwards. Haruo sticks to the original plan and attacks Godzilla, but Colonel Elliot Leyland's interference reveals Godzilla's weak spot, its dorsal fins. After Leyland dies in this first encounter, Exif Archbishop Metphis takes charge and promotes Haruo to commander, who convinces the remaining survivors to press on with the mission. The team then begins a second encounter and manages to trap and kill what they think is Godzilla in a collapsed mountain pass, but it turns out to be just a baby. The real Godzilla, now 300 meters tall, emerges and wipes out most of the survivors. You see, the Godzilla encountered originally was known as Godzilla Filius, which was created from cells that split off from the original Godzilla Earth during his 20,000-year reign. Godzilla Earth, the larger and original Godzilla, is the result of evolved plant life. He's the end result of nature's natural selection, making him the largest and most powerful life form in Earth's history. This occurred through horizontal gene transfer, which gives him incredible durability, heat resistance, stealth, and the ability to regenerate. Godzilla Earth is highly territorial and aggressive, attacking other monsters and humans without hesitation. He can generate an electromagnetic pulse which creates an impenetrable force field that even nuclear warheads can't break through. His atomic breath is a charged particle beam which is strong enough to destroy entire cities the size of Los Angeles in a single shot. This Godzilla also has a new move called the Super Oscillatory Wave, a unique roar which generates a destructive shockwave. His tail can also create a powerful plasma shockwave called the Plasma Cutter. His body absorbs radio waves, making him invisible to radar, except when he's using his atomic breath. He can convert excess energy into extreme heat, overheating his body and the surrounding area to temperatures over 1,000 degrees Celsius. Now trapped under rubble, Haruo watches Godzilla leave, swearing to kill it before he loses consciousness. In a post-credits scene, Haruo wakes up in a secluded area where he sees an indigenous girl standing next to him. The Eratrum can't contact Haruo after his team has their encounter with Godzilla, and the captain orders the ship to retreat if no survivors are found within 48 hours. Haruo, meanwhile, is saved by a native girl named Miana, who treats his wounds with a mysterious powder. Haruo reunites with some of his crew who were discovered by Miana's twin sister Meina and taken to their tribe, descendants of humans who protect the egg of their fallen deity. The group is questioned telepathically by the twins and their tribe leaders, who learn that the humans were only attacking Godzilla and not their lands. Miana and Meina join Haruo's group as they reunite with other survivors, including Metphis. Galugu, a Bilusolido, reveals that the twins' arrowheads are laced with nanometal, the same tech used to create Mechagodzilla, which has managed to spread over the last 20,000 years. Haruo is convinced by Galugu to stay on Earth and continue the mission to kill Godzilla. They trace an energy signature to the ruins of Mechagodzilla's old base, now called Mechagodzilla City. The twins then depart the group, warning them that the nanometal is poisonous, but the Bilusolido believe the metal can only harm Godzilla. As they set up a trap for Godzilla using the city's resources, Yuko Tani, a human sergeant and close friend to Haruo, confesses her feelings for him and kisses him. Meanwhile, Metphis reveals that the Bilusolido's obsession with logic might turn them into monsters, and hints that a greater threat than Godzilla exists, one which destroyed his homeworld. As Godzilla approaches, the group attempts to use EMP harpoons to take down Godzilla, and Galugu sacrifices the city's defenses to power the harpoons, but Godzilla survives, proceeding to overheat the facility. Galagu then begins fusing with the nanometal and has the vulture mechs begin absorbing their pilots, intending to use them as sacrificial weapons to kill Godzilla. Haruo remains unaffected, while Yuko is slowly converted into the nanometal. Metphies warns that Mechagodzilla City will destroy Earth if not stopped, but Galagu believes that transcending humanity is the key to defeating Godzilla. Haruo decides to fight with his humanity intact, ultimately destroying Galagu, which causes the nanometal to deactivate. Godzilla then destroys the city, leaving Haruo and the surviving humans, including a comatose and presumably dead Yuko, hiding in a cave while everything burns around them. After the destruction of Mechagodzilla City, the Bilusolido on the Eratrum demand justice against Haruo, blaming him for destroying what they believed was necessary to defeat Godzilla. The humans argue that Haruo exposed the Bilusolido's real goal of taking over Earth. Tensions rise, leading to a revolt, and the revolting Bilusolido shut down the ship's engine, forcing it to run on backup power for 2 days. Back on Earth, Dr. Martin, a human biologist, tells Haruo that Yuko is brain dead, kept alive by nanometal. Meanwhile, some survivors are convinced by Metphies that their survival is a divine sign. Metphies, working with the Exifs, plan to summon their god, and Metphies wants Haruo's help to make it happen. Dr. Martin advises Haruo to lay low until things calm down. Metphies then summons Ghidorah to Earth, where the monster attacks Godzilla, draining his energy. Ghidorah is an energy-based entity from another dimension, having evolved beyond a physical form to become pure energy. As a world-devouring force, he formed a twisted partnership with the Exif, who offered their planet, Exifcalis, to him. The Exif communicate with Ghidorah through a special system called Gematron. The Exif believe they were fulfilling a religious mission by convincing corrupt civilizations to sacrifice themselves to Ghidorah. Dr. Martin figures out that Ghidorah's true form is in another dimension, with Haruo figuring out it's guided by Metphies, who had replaced his eye with an amulet made from nanometal. Haruo cracks the amulet, which forces Ghidorah to be affected by Earth's physics, leading to its defeat by Godzilla. Metphies dies, saying Ghidorah will always watch over Haruo. In the aftermath, the survivors bury their weapons and join the tribe they originally encountered, and Dr. Martin figures out how to use Mechagodzilla's nanometal to help rebuild civilization. Haruo, meanwhile, takes Yuko's body to provoke Godzilla into destroying him and any trace of the nanometal. This ensures Ghidorah can't return, and the tribe can live in peace alongside Godzilla. Years later, Meina, now older, watches a ritual where children honor Haruo by burning knots of string, symbolizing their fears. After Shin Godzilla, Toho was unable to produce another live-action Godzilla film until 2020 due to a contract with Legendary Entertainment. Although the film's Japanese release coincided with the 69th anniversary of the Godzilla franchise, Godzilla Minus One officially celebrates the 70th anniversary, which occurred in 2024. A regraded black and white version of the film, Godzilla Minus One Minus Color, premiered in Japanese theaters in January of 2024. Godzilla Minus One became the first Godzilla film to be nominated for an Academy Award, and also the first to win. It also received a record 12 nominations at the Japan Academy Film Prize, surpassing the 10 nominations Shin Godzilla garnered. The film is set in post-war Japan between 1945 and 1947, making it the first Godzilla movie primarily set before 1954. It is also only the 5th Godzilla film in which Godzilla is the sole giant monster. It is the only other film on this breakdown I will highly recommend actually watching, as it is, once again in my opinion, the best Godzilla film and arguably one of the best pieces of cinema ever produced. In 1945, as World War II winds down, kamikaze pilot Koichi Shikishima tries to avoid a suicide mission by faking mechanical issues with his plane. That night, a giant monster, Godzilla, attacks the Odo Island base Shikishima had landed on. The next day, Shikishima wakes up to find that Tachibana is the only other survivor, and he's furious at Shikishima for not taking action when he had the opportunity. After returning home and learning of the loss of his parents in the Tokyo fire bombings, Shikishima becomes platonically involved with Noriko Oishi, a woman who also lost her parents and is now caring for a dying woman's child. To care for the three of them, Shikishima begins working on a minesweeper. Meanwhile, Godzilla, now mutated from nuclear testing, begins terrorizing the seas, sinking ships, and heading towards Japan. This Godzilla's origins are ambiguous, although we do know he was irradiated in 1946 during the American atomic tests at Bikini Atoll, specifically the Baker test. This exposure made him much larger and significantly more powerful than he was before. His primary weapon is, once again, his atomic breath, this time a much more explicit nuclear blast that creates a fireball, mushroom cloud, and shockwave. He is highly durable, has effective regeneration abilities, and leaves behind trails of radiation. Shikishima and his crew attempt to stop Godzilla by detonating a mine in its mouth, but the monster regenerates. Later, Godzilla lands in Japan and destroys much of Tokyo, while also killing Noriko. Devastated, Shikishima vows revenge. A former naval engineer, Kenji Noda, devises a plan to kill Godzilla by luring it into the bay and using Freon tanks to crush it beneath the water's immense pressure, with a backup plan to use balloons and decompression to kill it. Meanwhile, Shikishima prepares a mission to fly into Godzilla's mouth with explosives. After both of Kenji Noda's plans fail, Shikishima flies his plane into Godzilla's mouth while ejecting at the last second, leading to the defeat of the monster. Afterward, Shikishima learns Noriko is actually alive and in the hospital. Meanwhile, underwater, Godzilla's flesh begins regenerating. The Monsterverse is an American multimedia franchise and shared universe featuring characters such as Godzilla, King Kong, and other creatures both originally created by Toho, as well as a few originals from Legendary Pictures. Initially, the Monsterverse began as an American reboot of Godzilla, but was later expanded by Legendary into a full cinematic universe. It is the first series of live-action Godzilla films since the Heisei era in which all the movies are set within a single connected continuity. The films focus significantly on Monarch, a cryptozoological organization that studies giant monsters and their interactions with humanity. Many of the kaiju in the Monsterverse are referred to as Titans. In 1954, Godzilla, a massive prehistoric creature, is lured to Bikini Atoll and attacked with a nuclear weapon. Fast forward to 1999, and scientists Ishiro Serizawa and Vivian Graham discover a monster skeleton and two giant spores in the Philippines. One is dormant, the other has hatched. Meanwhile, in Japan, a nuclear plant experiences strange seismic activity, and Supervisor Joe Brady has to seal off the reactor, leading to the death of his wife Sandra as the plant collapses. 15 years later, Joe's son, Ford, a Navy officer, returns home, but he is forced to head to Japan shortly afterwards when Joe gets arrested for trespassing in the quarantine Jinjira zone. The pair find their old home, retrieve some data, and discover a giant creature has been feeding on the plant's reactors. The creature, known as a Muto, escapes, and Joe is severely injured in the ensuing chaos, later dying as a result. The event is publicly acknowledged as merely an earthquake. Prehistoric parasites, the Mutos thrived alongside Godzilla's species by attacking and killing them, laying their spores in radioactive carcasses. Mutos communicate through echolocation, able to locate radiation sources and each other from over 5,000 miles away. The male Muto can release electromagnetic pulses from his claws, disabling electronics within a 5-mile radius, while the female Muto has a similar EMP field known as the Sphere of Influence. The male also has wings, enabling flight at an unknown speed, though he reached Honolulu from Jinjira in about a day. Both Mutos possess immense strength and durability, but are weaker than Godzilla. The Muto wreaks havoc, and as a result, Godzilla shows up to fight it. Godzilla is a colossal apex predator that feeds on radiation and has appeared throughout human history, once worshipped as a god by an ancient civilization and influencing human mythology. In prehistoric times, Godzilla participated in several ancient wars, teaming up with Mothra to battle the alien King Ghidorah, eventually imprisoning the three-headed dragon in Antarctica. Godzilla also clashed with the Kong species of giant apes during an ancient feud, defeating the tyrannical Scar King and his army of great apes in the Hollow Earth. In the Monsterverse, Godzilla retains his iconic atomic breath, also called Heat Ray Breath. He also has shown the ability to evolve and improve his abilities over time. Godzilla shares a deep symbiotic relationship with Mothra, with the two able to communicate via sonar over great distances. Less reliant on his atomic breath compared to other versions, Monsterverse Godzilla prefers using his physical strength and combat skills in battle. As more Mutos appear, the military plans to lure and destroy them with nuclear warheads. However, one of the Mutos intercepts and destroys most of the warheads. In San Francisco, Ford helps deliver the last warhead, but the Mutos capture it and form a nest around it in Chinatown. Ford and a team then work instead to disarm the warhead while Godzilla fights the Mutos. In the end, Godzilla defeats the monsters and collapses from exhaustion, while Ford gets the warhead safely out to sea. Godzilla eventually awakens before returning to the ocean. The media dub him the King of the Monsters, while Ford reunites with his family. 5 years after giant monsters, now called Titans, are revealed to the world, Dr. Emma Russell, who works for Monarch, and her daughter Madison witness the birth of Mothra. Mothras are a species of ancient benevolent titans that once safeguarded the natural world and were revered as goddesses by ancient human cultures such as the Iwi. They shared a deep symbiotic relationship with Godzilla, helping him in a historic battle against the alien King Ghidorah. Mothra's appearance changes according to her emotions. She turns red when angry or upset, and blue with hints of aqua green when at peace. Mothra's body glows with patterns, and she can emit potent bioluminescent rays known as God Rays. While these traits are new to this version of Mothra, she still retains the essential abilities of her earlier incarnations. Emma and Madison are soon attacked by eco-terrorists led by Alan Jonah. Meanwhile, Mothra escapes and pupates beneath a nearby waterfall. Dr. Ishiro Serizawa and Vivian Graham reach out to Emma's ex-husband and Madison's father, Dr. Mark Russell, to help find the missing pair. At first reluctant due to his hatred for Godzilla, whom he blames for his son's death, Mark eventually agrees to join them. The group tracks the terrorists to Antarctica, where Jonah and Dr. Emma awaken a powerful three-headed titan, Monster Zero, also known as King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah is a malevolent alien dragon that invaded Earth in the distant past, where he fought against Godzilla and Mothra. The pair managed to imprison him under the Arctic Circle. In the present day, Monarch discovered Ghidorah's resting place and set up Outpost 32 to study him, labeling him Monster Zero. His primary attack involves shooting powerful golden gravity beams from each of his 3 heads. Ghidorah can also discharge lightning from the tips of his wings, but only after absorbing significant electricity. His flight creates a localized storm system comparable to a Category 6 hurricane. Scans of his brain show that the frontal lobes of each of his 3 heads vary in density, suggesting that each head may have its own level of intelligence or even independent thought. Ghidorah also has a remarkable healing ability. After Godzilla severed his left head, he was able to fully regenerate it in seconds. Ghidorah kills several Monarch scientists and battles Godzilla before escaping. Emma, now revealed to be working with the terrorists, argues that the awakening of the Titans will help heal the planet, but Madison disagrees. Despite pleas from her daughter, Emma awakens Rodan, who Monarch then lures towards King Ghidorah. Rodan, feared as the fire demon by ancient civilizations, has the power to destroy entire cities with his flight. Rodan can reach supersonic speeds, easily outpacing advanced jets like the F-35 Lightning II and FA-18 Hornet, and is highly maneuverable in the sky. Described as biovolcanic by Monarch, Rodan's body has a magma-based internal combustion system, with temperatures inside reaching up to 1200 degrees Celsius. Ghidorah defeats Rodan before Godzilla ambushes and fights Ghidorah, but in the process, a prototype oxygen destroyer weapon nearly kills Godzilla while failing to affect Ghidorah. Ghidorah then awakens the other dormant titans around the world, with Rodan yielding to his authority. Monarch eventually realizes that Ghidorah is an alien trying to terraform Earth for its own destructive purposes. Mothra, now fully transformed, flies to Monarch's Bermuda base to reach out to Godzilla, who is healing in an ancient underwater city. The team uses a submarine to find Godzilla's radioactive lair. Realizing that Godzilla's recovery will take too long, Serizawa sacrifices himself by manually triggering a nuclear warhead near Godzilla, which accelerates Godzilla's healing and boosts his strength. Godzilla and Mothra then go to battle Ghidorah, where Mothra sacrifices herself and Godzilla defeats Ghidorah as Emma dies in the chaos. With Ghidorah defeated, the Titans now recognize Godzilla as their alpha. 5 years after Godzilla defeated King Ghidorah, Kong is being kept in a massive dome on Skull Island. Kong is the last surviving member of a colossal gorilla-like species that once dominated Skull Island. He was born amid a violent battle between his parents and a horde of skull crawlers. Kong's mother placed him in a cave for safety before being killed alongside his father. Witnessing their brutal deaths as a young ape, Kong vowed to protect the island's creatures and keep the skull crawler population under control. Kong was first seen by outsiders in 1944 when fighter pilots Hank Marlowe and Junpei Ikari crash-landed on the island. Nearly 30 years later, in 1973, the scientific group Monarch discovered Kong during an expedition to the previously unexplored island. Known for his extraordinary strength, agility, and durability, Kong can go head-to-head with most other Titans. Gia, a deaf girl who communicates through sign language, is the adopted daughter of Kong expert Eileen Andrews. Eileen expresses that she is hesitant to move Kong, fearing Godzilla would come after him. Bernie Hayes, an employee at Apex Cybernetics, discovers suspicious activities at Apex's facility. Godzilla attacks the facility, and Bernie finds a massive device during the chaos. Madison Russell, who listens to Bernie's podcast, teams up with Josh Valentine to investigate Godzilla's recent attacks. Apex CEO Walter Simmons recruits Nathan Lind, a scientist who believes in a place called Hollow Earth, to find a power source which can take them there. Lind agrees to help after Apex shows they have special vehicles that can handle the dangerous gravity of Hollow Earth. They convince Eileen to let Kong lead them to the entrance of Hollow Earth in Antarctica. While transporting Kong, Godzilla attacks, beats Kong, and retreats. In response, the team follows Kong discreetly to the entrance of Hollow Earth. Upon getting into the Hollow Earth, they discover a strange ecosystem and ancient remnants of a battle between Godzilla's kind and Kong's species. Kong also finds a glowing axe made from one of Godzilla's species' dorsal plates. Back in Hong Kong, Bernie, Madison, and Josh uncover a secret underground lab at Apex where they find Mechagodzilla, a robot controlled by Ghidorah's severed head. Walter Simmons plans to use energy from Hollow Earth to power Mechagodzilla. Godzilla arrives in Hong Kong and attacks, leading to a massive battle with Kong, who emerges from the Hollow Earth following an atomic breath blast into the ground by Godzilla. After Kong gets seriously injured in the conflict, Mechagodzilla is activated, but it goes rogue, with Ghidorah's consciousness taking over. Mechagodzilla is a cybernetic titan developed in secret by Apex Cybernetics to eliminate Godzilla and end the reign of Titans. After Godzilla defeated King Ghidorah, Apex acquired the skull of Ghidorah from Alan Jonah's eco-terrorist group and connected its neural networks to Mechagodzilla. The mecha features a series of lenses in its throat that focus to unleash a powerful red energy beam, known as the A-74 Proton Scream. Additionally, it is equipped with two 16-cell missile launchers that rise from its shoulder pads and 6 rocket boosters near its dorsal fins, which improves its maneuverability in close combat. Constructed with a titanium endoskeleton and a body frame made of T1 nanometal skeleton housing, Mechagodzilla boasts exceptional resistance to damage. Mechagodzilla kills Walter and then attacks Godzilla. Lin manages to revive Kong, and Gia convinces Kong to help Godzilla. Together they fight Mechagodzilla, and Kong uses Godzilla's atomic breath to charge his axe and destroy Mechagodzilla. After the battle, Godzilla and Kong have a brief mutual acknowledgement before going their separate ways. Kong returns to Hollow Earth as Monarch sets up a new observation post. 3 years after beating Mechagodzilla, Kong is living in Hollow Earth and is on the lookout for more of his kind. On the surface, Godzilla is still keeping the peace between humanity and the giant monsters, demonstrated when he fights and defeats Titanus Scylla in Rome. Scylla, a titan once lying dormant beneath Sedona, Arizona, was awakened by King Ghidorah's call in 2019 and attacked Phoenix. Along with other Titans awakened by Ghidorah, Scylla eventually submitted to Godzilla after he killed Ghidorah. In 2027, Scylla began assaulting nuclear power plants across the globe, likely to gather energy in preparation for a fight with Godzilla. He eventually caught up to her in Rome, where he killed her after a short battle. Scylla uses her massive legs to easily crush buildings and can turn the nutrients from fallen Titans into a deadly waterborne bacteria. Additionally, she is capable of shooting bursts of webbing. A Monarch outpost in Hollow Earth picks up an unknown signal, which causes Gia to have strange visions at school, leading to worry from her adoptive mother, Dr. Andrews. Meanwhile, Godzilla heads to a nuclear power plant in France to absorb radiation and then goes to the Arctic to confront the Titan Tiamat. Monarch theorizes that Godzilla is powering up for a major encounter. Tiamat was originally dormant beneath Stone Mountain in Georgia, but was awakened by King Ghidorah's call in 2019 and began attacking humanity. Later, Tiamat took residence near one of Godzilla's old lairs in the Hollow Earth and attacked him when he came to reclaim it. Although she dominated much of the battle, Godzilla eventually forced her onto land where he made her submit and withdraw. By 2027, Tiamat had created a lair in the Arctic Ocean, using the electromagnetic energy from solar winds interacting with the North Pole to fuel her power. She can expel a corrosive, electrically conductive phosphorus ink from her mouth, which blinds her enemies. Kong, meanwhile, finds a previously unexplored area of Hollow Earth near his home, which is inhabited by a tribe of his species, including a young ape named Suko. Suko, a young ape titan, was raised under the harsh reign of the Scar King. In combat, Suko relies on biting, scratching, kicking, and throwing boulders to fight. After a rough start to their relationship, Kong convinces Suko to guide him to the tribe, members of which had previously attacked him, and the pair bond during the journey. Dr. Andrews, Gia, Bernie Hayes, and Monarch veterinarian Trapper head to the Hollow Earth to trace the signal, finding a destroyed Monarch base. Shortly after, they come across a temple inhabited by members of the Iwi tribe, Gia's previously thought to be extinct people who communicate telepathically and live beneath portals to the surface. The group realizes the signal was a distress call from the Iwi. Inside the temple, Andrews discovers hieroglyphs which reveal both past and future. They depict a tyrannical giant ape, the Scar King, who once tried to conquer the surface world and waged war against Godzilla's species. Ultimately, Godzilla defeated the Scar King by imprisoning him and his tribe deep within Hollow Earth. The prophecy also reveals that Gia holds the key to reawakening Mothra. The Scar King, a ruthless and sadistic leader of the Grey Apes, once tried to conquer the surface world but was defeated and sealed away in the Hollow Earth by Godzilla. Over time, he sought revenge, gaining control over the ancient ice titan Shimo through a crystal shard attached to his whiplash. The Scar King derives pleasure from tormenting his subjects, using the crystal to force Shimo into attacking by causing her intense pain, as seen when she slammed her head against the ground during the first command to strike Kong. The crystal also functions as a sharp weapon. In battle, the Scar King relies on his cunning and agility, lacking the raw strength and durability of either Godzilla or Kong. Shimo, an ancient and mythical titan, has the ability to control ice, a power that triggered the last ice age. She was captured and enslaved by the Scar King, who used a crystal shard on his whip to inflict pain and control her actions. Shimo is a reptilian creature resembling an evolved form of Godzilla. She is quadrupedal with white iridescent scales and a crystalline spine along her back. In addition to releasing a devastating ice beam called Frostbite Blast, Shimo's mere presence can freeze the environment around her. Shimo is considered stronger than Godzilla, and her power was a major factor in motivating Godzilla's evolution. Kong finds his people enslaved by the Scar King and faces off against him, but the Scar King uses a crystal to control Shimo, who manages to severely injure Kong. With Suko's help, Kong escapes but loses his axe. Kong tracks down Gia and gets an exoskeleton for his frostbitten arm thanks to Trapper. Unbeknownst to them, another ape tracks their movements and alerts the Scar King of their location, and by extension the location of the portals to the surface. Meanwhile, Gia successfully reawakens the reborn Mothra. Godzilla kills Tiamat and absorbs cosmic radiation, changing his dorsal plates to a magenta color and significantly increasing the size of his arms. Kong emerges from Hollow Earth and tries to get Godzilla's attention by calling him to Cairo, but Godzilla attacks Kong immediately. After a short fight, Mothra arrives and convinces Godzilla to side with Kong, and the Titans return to Hollow Earth to battle the Scar King's forces. Despite this, the Scar King manages to reach the surface, leading them to Brazil, where Shimo begins the process of causing another ice age. The battle turns in Godzilla and Kong's favor when Suko wields Godzilla's axe and manages to break the control crystal, and Shimo switches sides to help freeze the Scar King as Kong ultimately defeats him. Godzilla heads back to the Colosseum in Rome to rest. Gia decides to stay with Andrews instead of her own people, and Mothra restores the Iwi's protective barriers. Kong returns to Hollow Earth as the new leader of his tribe, bringing Suko and Shimo with him. And that, my friends, is the conclusion to the ultimate Godzilla lore breakdown. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to the next video with all of you.